Brian Vaughn and Van Lee are two friends and lifelong Star Wars fans, but their love of George Lucas's Space Baby is not the same. For Van, his obsessive fandom allowed him to win the 2019 Star Wars Trivia in the Park contest in Springfield, Missouri, where his defeat of a man who brought a 2-liter of Diet Mountain Dew to a 1-hour event is local legend. For Brian, he thinks it's okay to call clone troopers stormtroopers. It's here that their fandom collides as the duo watch and comment on the movies, shows, and stories as only one nerd and one super nerd can. It's Podcast, A Star Wars Story. Welcome, everyone, to the Phantom Menace Part 2. I am your host, Van Lee. This is Podcast, A Star Wars Story, and I'm joined on this venture by Mr. Brian Vaughn. Welcome, Grand Moff Brian Vaughn, to the show. I got it.
I hope my withering stare forced you into correcting yourself. Yeah, I am very fired up.
This is going to be fun.
Are you fired up?
As fired up as I can be for the Phantom Menace.
All right, scale of 1 to Bombad. How fired up are you?
Misa, not that far from Bombad.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Me too. So I think we're going to do a good job today.
Had us on ourselves on the back already. We're not even 5 minutes into this thing.
I don't see any real need to continue at this point. So what happens? They win.
The good guys win.
Yeah.
Ish.
For now. With some attrition.
Well, we covered the first part of the movie last week, and that encroached upon pod racing. And then I guess it encompassed pod racing. We're through with that.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we really don't have to discuss it anymore.
No.
And I think that's the best part about this show is we're done with pod racing for the whole series.
Yeah, apparently, until they bring it back at some point, which they've got to.
Well, on that Resistance show, I think they were racers, but they weren't pod racers. That's the only one of these show things that I didn't watch. Rebels, I hated so much that I wouldn't give the one that came after it the time of day.
You're going to have to one day, I bet.
Maybe. They already canceled it and only lasted like 2 years. Nobody liked it.
So I'll just really quickly recap where we are. So the Boonta Eve pod race has just taken place. Sebulba won.
Nope. I know you're still trying to gaslight into that.
Hold on.
I have to put an end to it.
That's what what do you have in your notes?
Anakin, our little bull-headed boy.
Why him? Who would script that? Mine sounds more realistic.
It may be, but George Lucas is the man that scripted that, to no one's surprise. That's the kind of thing. We'll have a little boy beat all these cool monsters in this race somehow.
Yeah, you'll want any other character other than Anakin to win.
And then expect us to like that little boy after we beat all these monsters? Come on.
It's a really bad precedent to set up top. I just wanted to say a shout out to one of the show's sponsors from last week. I've really been enjoying this sabotage drink that Sebulba produces, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's delicious.
Well, they reached out to me, and it's expensive to maintain a podcast studio and get these shows out there in a timely manner. And so sometimes we have to take these advertising deals, and we did. His people reached out to me. We took this deal. We got so much money. I am now a multi-billionaire.
Wow.
Trickle down economics, Brian. Eventually, you may get some.
I did notice that I did get a paycheck for like $45. It's pretty good.
And a handshake. You forgot about that part.
And I get to meet Sebulba, right? Right?
Yeah, about that. Actually, Sebulba does stick around for a while. I think he's one of the comic series. We see him again. I don't know that we know how Sebulba dies.
I don't think he dies.
He's eternal.
It's a real Bilbo Baggins situation, if you ask me. Very equivalent weight in the history of fiction. I would say Sebulba and Bilbo Baggins.
Sure. Every child knows this. And of course, today we received some new advertisers, so you'll hear from them a little bit later on.
No, I have noticed. Ads. Have you had any of this sabotage?
No, I don't drink energy drinks.
Okay, well, I've been committing more crimes since I've been drinking it. I'm a little worried.
You are sweating an awful lot already, and I suppose that's a side effect of it.
Because I do a lot of crimes on the way.
Oh, that's what caused it. Okay. Well, if you like what we do, before we get into this, go check out some of our other stuff. Well, actually, don't. It sounds like I'm telling you to do it now. Don't go do it now. Finish listening to this. Then when you're finished with this, go check out the Bootu Boys, one of our other podcasts available on the podcast network, where you and I, as well as our friend Spencer, talk random shows. We also have a Patreon. If you like what we do, patreon.com/Bootu Inc. Everything's free. You can download and listen to whatever you want. If you like what you hear, leave us a couple of bucks. But if not, just listen to our stuff. That's what we want people to do anyway.
Yeah.
So let's get into this stupid movie that I enjoy so much.
Let's do it.
We pick up where we left off. Again, a pod race victory in hand for our young, annoying child prodigy, Anakin Skywalker. The crowd is going nuts at this point. However, not everyone appears pleased. Watto and Warwick Davis are flabbergasted and disgusted that Sebulba met with defeat. And this is Warwick Davis without makeup. Well, I guess he has makeup on, but not in a weird costume.
I mean, he's Warwick Davis here.
Correct.
He looks like Warwick Davis.
So he looks like he does. However, he's not a Greedo creature or whatever.
Yeah.
Rhodian.
Like, he may have a little bit of rouge on or something.
Jabba the Hutt, on the other hand, has fallen asleep in the middle of this pod race, and he has to be poked awake by his major domo, Bib Fortuna. Bib Fortuna here is played by Matthew Wood, who is the supervising sound editor at Skywalker Sound, and he's the voice of General Grievous himself. They initially had, I read this, Joe DiMaggio, the guy who does Bender.
John DiMaggio.
Not the baseball player.
Joe DiMaggio's dead.
Yes. Well, he's frozen somewhere. At least his head is.
Is it really?
Is that still a thing?
I think that's Ted Williams.
Oh, that's Williams. I'm getting all these people confused.
Wrong 1940s awesome baseball player.
Well, John DiMaggio voices, of course, Bender from Futurama. He voiced Grievous in one of the early iterations. It might have been the movie, but I remember telling you about the Clone Wars movie that came out. It was 2D in a particular style. It wasn't Kurosawa. There was an extra syllable in there, whatever it was. I still don't remember it. But anyway, then...
Oh, okay. So I looked this up because I was so confused about it. So it was Tartakovsky?
That's
right?
what it was. That's what it was. Well, anyway, they decided they wanted to change the voice for Grievous going into Revenge of the Sith. And so Matthew Wood, the sound guy, was showing some different techniques he could do to do the robotic sound and the echo and all that. So he just recorded his own voice being kind of goofy with it, lowered the octaves a little bit, sent it to Lucas, and Lucas is like, okay, great. There's General Grievous. Perfect. So that's kind of cool, and he's been Grievous since.
I have no grievances with the audio clips you've sent me, Mr. DiMaggio. Oh, George.
Next up, walking into Watto's luxury box, Jedi Qui-Gon Jinn is immediately verbally assaulted by the flittering Toydarian known as Watto, and Watto yells at him, "You swindled me! You knew the boy was going to win! Somehow you knew it!"
And I'd be worried that he's going to fly into my head like a June bug or something, just whomp me with his big wings.
The problem is if it's night out and you leave a light on, he won't leave that light alone.
Oh, yeah, he's all around that thing.
Well, Qui-Gon says, whenever you gamble, my friend, eventually you will lose. He tells Watto to bring the parts to the main hangar, and I'll come collect the boy at your shop later. Watto tells him it wasn't a fair bet. You can't have him. But Qui-Gon decides to invoke the name of the Hutts, saying if Watto likes, they can present their case to the worm monster gangsters and see how they want to deal with the situation. Watto knows this is a bad idea, of course, so he says in just the most heartbreaking voice, "Take him," as a tear rolls down his snout.
I guess I'll give up my boy slave.
The boy that I own. That kind of started to drift into Gunray. That was if Watto and Newt Gunray had a baby.
Oh my God, don't even talk about what an awful character that would be.
That would be the focus of a movie. If it's a 2-hour movie, they'd be on screen for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
We see Qui-Gon back at the Nubian ship with all the parts, and the crew is working to get everything installed. He tells his apprentice, Obi-Wan Kenobi, I have one last thing I need to take care of, so I'll be back shortly. Obi-Wan, showing his affinity for the Force, muses, why do I sense we've picked up another pathetic life form? Of course, referring to Jar Jar being the first pathetic life form, and the next pathetic life form being this child slave that they've freed.
Yeah, little does he know, he's got a pod race champ in his midst.
Qui-Gon tells him we owe everything to this annoying little boy, so he's going to come with us.
Already building up that kid's ego to the point where, I'm just going to say it, he might not be a good guy for much longer.
Could be a problem at some point. Arriving at Shmi and Anakin Skywalker's slave hut, Qui-Gon hands the boy a pile of credits, which was money they received by selling his pod racer. He excitedly tells his mother about the pile of money, and Qui-Gon decides to toss in, you know how you were owned by that flying seal monster? Now you're free. You're not a slave. Of course, what he should be saying is, you're no longer a slave to a flying snout monster. You're a slave to the Jedi Order.
Yeah, because that's truly the trade being made here. He's marrying the Force.
They had a beautiful procession, though. It was wonderful to be at the wedding.
He's essentially agreeing, he doesn't know it yet, he's agreeing to get a little rat tail.
And of course, Obi-Wan has his little rat tail in this episode. Yeah. It's called the Padawan braid.
Yeah, well.
Shmi is both delighted and very saddened by this news because she knows precisely what it means. She asks the Jedi if he will take Anakin with him to train him as a Jedi, And Qui-Gon says, sure, there's no way the council would say no to me. Of course. Qui-Gon tells the two that nothing happens by accident in all of this. I'm going to take Anakin to Coruscant. He'll be trained as a Jedi. Even if Anakin succeeds, though, this will be a hard life for the young boy. Anakin excitedly asks his mother if he can go, and she tells him it's his choice. We get another hearty, yippee, escape from his mouth, and he rushes off to gather his things. He doesn't get too far, however, before it hits him. He stops to ask, what's going to happen to my mother? Well, Qui-Gon says he tried to free Shmi, but Watto wouldn't have it.
Yeah, and you really can't overpower Watto, who is a bug seal thing. Also, this to me reveals for sure that nothing happened between Shmi and Qui-Gon.
You think so?
I think if anything happened, he's freeing her.
I don't know. It's a good reason to be like, sorry, babe, I couldn't do it.
That's true, like a pilot landing in different cities and leaving a trail of broken hearts.
A trail of little Liam
And in
Neesons.
a way, what is Qui-Gon but some sort of galactic pilot?
Well, in fact, in A New Hope, what did they refer to Anakin as? Oh, no, Obi-Wan kept calling him Star Pilot, which is kind of redundant when they were talking space piloting and Star Wars and all that.
I guess that's true. It just sounds cooler, maybe. Like if you were at a party or something and somebody asked what you did and you'd say like, oh, I do podcasts, which is fine or whatever, but it's not as cool as saying Star Pilot.
On the scale, it's podcast maybe an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Star Pilot, 10 out of 10. So we're close.
Right. It's pretty close. What is 9? Like The Undertaker, if you were to get to be that?
If you that one guy, he's the only 9 in the universe.
Yeah, you get to be it, though.
Oh, I see.
You're tall.
Yeah, that'd be fair.
You could carry an urn.
I have a horrible muscular structure at this point, and my back doesn't work.
Yeah, you're limping around.
Anakin is pretty distraught that his mother isn't freed as well, but she convinces him this is a great opportunity for the young boy and he should take it. Qui-Gon tells him to pack his things and to give me 7 minutes with your mom, and then we'll be on our way. Anakin rushes to his room and switches on a still very nude C-3PO, who immediately begins to hem and haw about Anakin leaving before finishing him. Anakin apologizes for not finishing the robot, but says, you've been a great pal. I'll make sure mom doesn't sell you or anything. Get this. This causes C-3PO to hem and haw.
Yeah, of course. And I would be mad too, like if my panels weren't all the way on yet or anything like that, and this little boy who is my god, essentially, he's brought me into existence, is not willing to finish me.
You know, you saying it like that does make it make sense that C-3PO is the way he is, because if he thinks Anakin is his god, Anakin built him, we know how that kid is.
Yeah, he turns out to be a real bad guy, but I would argue that that's why C-3PO maybe just tries a little too hard later on to be
overcompensate.
Useful.
Okay.
He also tries really hard to get attention.
I don't think he tries very hard. I think it comes naturally to do that effort of trying, which
maybe
for him isn't very hard, but for us is intense.
He's just firing on all robot cylinders at all times.
Anakin goes to leave the singles apartments on Tatooine with Qui-Gon, but before he gets away, his expression drops. He realizes he just can't leave his mother like this. He rushes back to her and throws himself in her arms, telling her, I just can't do it. He asks if I'll ever see you again, and she asks what he thinks. He waffles for a minute and says, I'll come back in about 10 years before you will have been sold and then married and then kidnapped by sand people. On his way he goes.
I mean, I'll say I think about you every day.
The screen wipes and we see an orb come warbling up to a black-cloaked figure standing out amongst the dunes. The face of Darth Maul comes to view as the Zabrak Sith reads or understands whatever the orb tells him, so he climbs aboard his cool swoop bike and rockets off through the desert.
This is nice imagery. I like this little Darth Maul in the desert with his drone orbs reporting back to him scene.
And he's always way out in the middle of nowhere, so he has a long way to go and is just waiting for that orb.
It kind of makes him scarier because he's not rushing in.
He's not sweating from what I can tell. It would be really hot there.
Oh, yeah. Tatooine? We know it's really hot there.
Do Zabraks sweat? I guess that's the question.
Well, I've only seen 2 Zabraks, and I've never seen either sweat.
But to be fair, you were in a controlled environment. It was AC, so who knows?
Yeah, and it's not like he's working out. I'm sure he does. I'm not saying he's out of shape.
What kind of workouts does Darth Maul do? Crunches and just normal stuff? I would think. He's very agile.
Yeah, lots of core exercises, lots of cardio.
Well, that's just it. I don't think he ignores cardio. I think he's on that treadmill or that elliptical a lot.
Darth Maul can go all fucking day. I bet he's good at parkour, too, which isn't really exercising, but it seems like he can really deflect off stuff when he fights, at least.
I mean, he twirls and whirls here after a little while, for sure.
So much. Again, like, what a lot of the Star Wars villains lack in flair, Darth Maul has.
The only problem is he's not vocal. So he's not a scary guy from talking to you. But then again, Palpatine covers that. So I think that is a good way to take the character.
Do you think they should have had Darth Maul not talk at all? That would have been kind of interesting.
I mean, they pretty much already did that, but yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They give him like those 31 words.
But just make it 0 and have him snarl once.
Seems cooler. The unknown is more frightening than the known.
And when he smiles, it's kind of gross, so.
And maybe instead, when he smiles, maybe he has like Jaws teeth. That'd be so goofy.
I love how in those movies, Jaws would just bite through cables and stuff.
Yeah.
He functionally used the teeth, which makes sense because why else would you have them?
That's what you're,
still
if
weird.
You have them, you might as well, you got them, flaunt them, right? If you're 7 feet tall and you've got a metal set of teeth in your mouth and you're trying to catch James Bond, you'd use those teeth.
Qui-Gon and Anakin have nearly made it to the Nebulian transport ship where Padme, Obi-Wan, and the rest of the crew are preparing to depart. They kind of start half jogging at this point, and Anakin says, "Qui-Gon, sir, wait, I'm tired." So Qui-Gon turns to look at the boy and sees Darth Maul speeding towards them. He yells for Anakin to drop, and the boy just, boom, goes straight down, and it's a good thing he does.
How mad would you be if you were Qui-Gon? This kid's like, I need to sit down while Darth Maul's attacking them.
The vehicle just whips right over Anakin. Here's the thing. At this point, Darth Maul doesn't have a fucking clue who Anakin is. He was just ready to run over a kid, which I applaud his dedication.
Yeah, he doesn't give a shit.
Qui-Gon pulls out his lightsaber, and just in time as the Sith whips his out as well, and the two clash blades. The Jedi yells for the boy to rush to the ship and tell them to take off while he battles the aggressive Darth in the heat. We have a flurry of green and red filling up the sky as the two battle, but Anakin succeeds in his mission and the ship takes off, flying close enough to the two fighters to allow Qui-Gon to leap aboard the ship and escape to safety, leaving Darth Maul standing on the planet below.
I wish he would start shaking his fist at the air. Oh no, they got away. No, I take it back. He should speak and he should have a dumb voice.
That was almost Watto.
Oh no, they got away. What if every character had that voice that was a bad guy? I'm counting Watto as a bad guy, by the way.
Well,
he's a slaver. Yeah, yes. Exactly. And a flying slug seal. I don't trust that.
Well, let's take a moment here to talk a little bit about lightsaber fighting forms. Now, I mentioned this last episode, and I need to bring up a few more here. I'd actually written like a whole 2 pages worth of shit to talk about.
I don't doubt this.
We're not going to do that. Rather, I'm going to spread them throughout the prequel series.
Okay.
Now, for Jedi, typically when you're training, your lightsaber fighting training, you pick a specialty and you learn it wholly to make it your key fighting style. You'll learn about all 7 styles, but you only pick one to go to. Occasionally, you pick a second one to master or a third one, depending on how good you are. But typically, each Jedi has their one.
You have, I'd imagine.
And how, high your midi-chlorians are or whatever.
Duh. We call it M count now, though, at the factory.
Each of the, what factory? What are you making
Jedi
at the
factory? We make Jedis there. It's really easy. You ever try it?
I have not.
Yeah, you just got a die-cast mold thing.
Okay.
You pour midi-chlorians in there, shake them out of the container you get them from.
Can you make them the things where, it's a little pill and you put it in water and it turns into a dinosaur or whatever?
What were those? I forgot about those until you just mentioned them.
But they also didn't get that much bigger.
No, I would stand on like this little stepping stool over our kitchen sink fucking around with those little dinosaur things when I was a kid. And I remember them being kind of a real, not great return on time investment, I'll tell you that.
Total bummer for those things. Occasionally you get one that's like a squid, but mostly they were dinosaurs.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could have been playing with Legos, but instead I'm standing over the sink with some glob that hasn't really formed a true shape.
Well, the different lightsaber forms have different pros and cons. One will be good for this, one's better for that. The important thing I want to note right now is that Qui-Gon uses Form 4, which is called Ataru. Ataru is a very aggressive form, which utilizes the Force to enhance movement and speed to quickly cut through a foe. Now, Padawan Obi-Wan also uses it in this movie, although he switches after this movie because of what happens.
He sees it's maybe not the most effective method.
Yeah, so he switches to Seresu, where he becomes the Master, and that's a very defensive form, as I mentioned before.
We're not going to get into the Sith forms right now. Is that correct?
It's still the same 7 forms.
Okay.
However, what I will say is that, remember how I mentioned that, like in the Old Republic, any given Sith would be more powerful than most Jedi, right?
Yeah.
And that's because of how they're formed and forged and so forth. Sith tend to know more styles of lightsaber fighting. Like Palpatine knows them all. He's apparently an expert in all of them. He doesn't like to fight with a lightsaber because it's beneath him. That's why he uses lightning bolts.
You know, a lot of people, for any sort of sword or saber type object, they put it in a sheath. Palpatine, though, puts it in a sheath.
Leaves it right in there. Yeah, so anyway, like Darth Maul, for example, he uses Form 7, I believe, which is called Juyo. And I think there's a second part to it. It might be Vapad, which is the Mace Windu thing, but I'm going on a tangent.
Right.
Anyway, it's a slightly more balanced but still aggressive form than Ataru. Ataru's problems come around when essentially you don't have enough space because it uses a lot of area. Oh, and by the way, Grandmaster Yoda is the Ataru fighter. And that's why we see him twirling and flying.
Well, and I'd imagine with him, he can do that in smaller spaces because he's a tiny little gremlin.
Mm-hmm. Whereas Liam Neeson's huge.
Yeah, so, you know, you get in a tight space with your Liam Neeson arms, a lot tougher to swing a sword.
And the other thing it does is it wears you out because it's so intense and so quick. It's about beating them down fast.
Yeah.
Get in, take them down.
You'd have to be in good shape.
And he's just a 50-year-old man.
Now, did you say, so Darth Maul, though, the fighting style you mentioned earlier that was more balanced, was that Darth Maul's or Darth Vader's?
Darth Maul. Darth Vader used any of them. Like, he was just
I'd
good with all
imagine
of
at
them.
that point he could be good at all of them. So, Darth Maul, does that fighting style have anything in there about, like, fucking big dicking around, showboating a little bit?
It should, because it doesn't work when he tries to do that. But he looks good while doing it.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell he's practiced it in the mirror.
Cartwheeling everywhere. Yeah.
I would do that if I would. I think that'd be part of it. Maybe not as dramatically, but I'd get a little bit of flair into one of my motions so that someone knew I was a pro.
And the next episode, episode 2, Attack of the Clones, I'll be talking an awful lot about Makashi, which is Form 2, which is the style that Count Dooku is considered the greatest ever in the history of ever at it. More later for that.
Oh, man, I can't wait to talk about Count Dooku.
I do remember being super psyched to finally see some lightsaber combat in this movie when I was a kid. We got a really cool scene here. Maul and Qui-Gon fight a little bit. It's a teaser.
Yeah.
It's to get you ready for what happens
Wets
later,
your
but it's
whistle,
still pretty cool.
Leaves you wanting more.
And we get a really iconic look here of the cameras behind Darth Maul. He turns his lightsaber off and he's cloaked and you see the ship fly off
I love
in the
it.
distance.
It's one of the best and most memorable scenes from this movie.
Now on the ship, Qui-Gon is heavily breathing and splayed out on the floor after his fight. When Obi-Wan and Anakin rush in to check on the Jedi Master, they ask him what the hell that thing was, and Qui-Gon's unsure, but he says it was well-trained in the Jedi arts. His best guess is that it was after the Queen. Anakin asks what they should do about it, and Qui-Gon, as is his custom, says, whatever, it'll sort itself out, I don't care.
Yeah, he's flying by the seat of his old pants.
Qui-Gon introduces the young boy to less young boy Obi-Wan, who's 37. Ewan McGregor's 37 in this. That's crazy to me.
37-year-old teenager. It's how I like to think of us.
Anakin shakes his hand and asks if he's a Jedi too, and Kenobi musters the fakest smile you've ever seen and says, I'm going to cut off your arms and legs one day, little boy.
He should have just said, like, yeah, sure, everybody is. Yeah, well, Jar Jar, you're a Jedi too.
There's Rick Ollie as a Jedi.
Yeah, fuck it. We're giving out membership passes to everybody.
Our standard spaceship cutaway and screen wipe goes down, and we find ourselves back on the planet Naboo in the capital of Theed. Who are we visiting, you might ask? Why, it's Newt Gunray, Viceroy of the Trade Federation. He's alongside Naboolian Governor C.O. Bibble, two of our most popular characters. Would you care to describe what Newt Gunray is riding on?
Like one of his buddies, I think.
It's some sort of a throne, but also has spider robot legs.
Yeah, it seems like, is it living?
I don't think it's living.
Okay.
I think it's a droid of some sort.
I wasn't actually sure.
I mean, it's pretty cool.
No,
if
it is
you're going to have
cool.
a throne, why not make it mobile?
But it does seem like, knowing Newt so well, it seems like, come on, man. You're not cool enough to ride that thing.
Well, Newt tells C.O. Bibble that his queen is lost, his people are starving, and he's going to die long before his people do if he doesn't cooperate. Bibble responds by telling Newt they are a democracy! Oh, shit. No, I'm 2 movies ahead of myself. Sorry, wrong one. He says they're a democracy, the people have spoken. Gunray musters the sassiest Victorian-era England dandy boy dismissal wave I've ever seen and goes, oh, tuck him away.
But he doesn't make him do another one of those awful hostage videos like earlier.
Yeah, you must contact me.
You know they've got him at like saber point.
Newt Gunray with a lightsaber.
Yeah.
Elegant.
He wouldn't know how to use that thing.
Two droids lead Sebulba down some stairs, and another droid approaches Newt, telling him the troops are in position to search the swamps for some rumored underwater villages. Newt likes the sound of this, so he nods and tells the droid to let him know if they find any delicious mosquito larvae out there, too.
Which I guess if you're Newt and,
Rune Hako.
And Rune, then you're definitely going to be really interested in eating bugs and mosquitoes.
Is that all frogs eat? I don't know a lot about frogs.
Cheeseburgers, too.
Oh, where do they prefer to go?
Hardee's?
In-N-Out Burger.
Yeah, In-N-Out Burger's better.
Croakies?
But I'm saying they don't quite have that level of taste.
Oh, okay.
Croakies. McFroggles.
Burger Toad. That's not even good.
That's what I like about it.
Back on the Nebulian transport, Padme wanders into a room with a sleeping Jar Jar and a recharging R2-D2 and...
excuse me. Lily pad Thai.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Sorry. Okay.
I'd eat that.
Yeah, I would too.
She goes to get the TV remote to switch on the all CO Bibble all the time channel. And it's that message you mentioned earlier that Obi-Wan received when Padme and co were busy watching Space NASCAR. Bibble mentions the death toll being catastrophic. You must contact me. She's been told about this before, I imagine. So she knows likely that it's a trick message, but a little part of her thinks, what if it's real?
Yeah, and that would, if you're in charge of an entire people, that would cross your mind. What if this is real? Nobody mentions at this point, or the movie doesn't, so I'll say it for the audience's benefit. C-SPAN, the C stands for CO Bibble.
Oh.
And that's what this channel is that everyone's watching in this movie.
So what about C-SPAN 2?
CO Bibble 2.
Shit, no way.
Yeah, it's great.
That's
That one's
cool.
better. That one's raw and uncut.
That's the one where they don't bleep it out.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Or blur it.
That's all Bibble all the time too. Like it'll be him at night, like at his own home. This kind of shit he says there. Woo!
Padme looks over to see Anakin creeping on her in the corner, and he looks a bit sad or scared, or maybe he just has to fart. I'm not sure because he's not a very good actor. He says he's cold, and she brings him a blanket because apparently he's too dumb to get a blanket himself.
I believe that, though, yeah.
This is actually a good point that he makes, though. Anakin was, of course, a slave boy on Tatooine. That means he likely wasn't sitting around in air-conditioned rooms. He's got to be used to the hot desert all the time, so the coldness of space. You know what? Good job, George Lucas. Really nailed this little bit.
I gotta say, he was doing a little bit of actual attention to detail here. And on top of it being hot on Tatooine, like he always has to wear his karate outfit. Or what would you call that?
No, I'll go with karate outfit.
I don't know what
fine.
it actually is supposed to be.
A G?
Like a burlap, like sort of a bag that was cut.
Whatever Watto managed to stumble across and put on him. And you know, Watto's sense of fashion is what it is because he wears his thong thing.
Well, see, that's the thing is at Watto's age, being a great warrior like he apparently was in his past, he doesn't care. He's letting it all hang out in that heat.
Anakin asks if Padme is okay, and she says she's worried about her people. Well, what I mean to say is the queen is worried about her people. This is, of course, Padme, the handmaiden,
yes,
who's not the queen. She says the people could be suffering, and she needs to convince the Galactic Senate to take action. He reveals the next step in his plan to woo Natalie Portman and hands her a necklace. He says he carved it out of Japor snippet,
which
is a snippet of Japor wood. Not as exciting as it sounds.
Dang.
That's all it is.
I was hoping it was a guy named Japor.
Upon receiving this, she says, I don't need this to remember you by, but what she really means was, I don't want this.
Yeah, this is garbage. It's just going to get in one of my drawers that I don't get into very often, and I'll lose it.
But she does accept it and tells him many things will change when we reach the capital, especially when I reveal the queen reveals the tragedies occurring on Naboo. She says she cares for young Anakin, who responds with, I care for you too. And then Padme gets out in front of this one and says, let's talk about your mom for a second.
Yeah, you're just a little boy. There's no chance I'll bear your children.
I thought you said bury your children.
Well,
that's ominous.
That's kind of what he tries to do.
The crew has finally arrived on Coruscant, and as they approach the Senate parking garage, Phil Collins' lookalike Rick Ollie is busy telling a wide-eyed Anakin all about the buildings and transport ships, which is only slightly less boring than the trade dispute stuff we've had to listen to this whole fucking movie.
Yeah, and we're not done listening to it either.
Ollie points out Chancellor Valorum's private shuttle, which gets Brian, of course, all excited.
Oh, yeah.
And he also points out that on the docking bay, Senator Palpatine is waiting for him. He says, you see that really evil little blip down there? That's a senator. which could apply to a lot of senators.
Oh, yeah. The name even sounds evil. Senator.
Palpatine, Valorum, and a slew of rooster-headed guards welcome the Queen and her entourage, and the senator tells her they are quite relieved to see her after the communications breakdown. He introduces her to Valorum, who tells her he has arranged for a very special Senate meeting to discuss her plight.
And of course, Valorum, I don't know if I've mentioned this, is played by a guy named Terrence Stamp, who's kind of an old man who
Been in all sorts of stuff.
He's been in stuff, and he kind of brings that sort of stern dad presence as Valorum, a guy who you might not remember him for long after meeting him, but he seems fine.
But you'll also never forget that guy's face.
Yeah, it's kind of a long face. It's one of those faces that really sticks out because of how dark the eyebrows are in contrast to the hair.
Now, Palpatine leads the Queen and her strangely present handmaiden towards the main building while explaining procedure, which is, again, quite thrilling to hear about, George. Thank you. I wanted to hear about it.
Kids love rules. They love to see how rules are made and discussed, which we'll get into that later.
Anakin goes along with the Queen and the handmaidens, while the Jedi hang back to talk to Chancellor Valorum. Qui-Gon tells him he must speak to the council at once because the situation has become much more complicated. Also, I want to tell them all about the stupid shit I did, which totally worked out fine in the end. Anakin sits next to Jar Jar in the transport ship, which is piloted by some sort of werewolf bellhop, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Jar Jar tells the boy what he thinks about the Queen at this point.
The Queens are being grossly nice, Mr. Tinks. Pretty hot.
Wow.
Did he say what I think he said, Brian?
I think he did.
I tried to rationalize how else he could mean this. I don't get it.
I don't either. By the way, the closed captioning on Disney Plus says "pity hot,"
Mm-hmm.
and it makes me think they changed it. Even maybe in the captioning, it sounds like he's saying, "I want to do stuff with Natalie Portman," even though I'm kind of an amphibian that's like part of her royal guard, kind of now,
or at the very best, her friend.
Yeah,
I don't know. It came across as
it's
real weird.
really weird, and it's kind of like locker room talk with this boy,
with a little boy and a gungan.
Exactly, like ew.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Ugh.
And I mean, I agree with Jar Jar, but
it doesn't.
You don't need to say it.
Exactly, and you're putting ideas in this evil boy's head.
Where do you think he became evil? It's from hanging out with Jar Jar for a little bit.
Oh, okay. All right, this is a road I'll go down.
Well, Brian, it's time for some hot, sexy diplomacy.
Oh, yeah.
Palpatine is talking to the Queen in his office.
For a while.
Oh, yeah, the next half hour at minimum. He's talking to her in his office, and this is the real Queen. This is Padme as the Queen.
Yes.
So she switched back into that role by this point. And we can see Natalie Portman has put on the chicken outfit, so we know it's her. Stop me if you've heard this one before, but Palpatine tells the Queen the Republic is no longer what it once was. The Senate is full of greedy, squabbling delegates, and there is no interest in the common good. He says he must be frank, and I thought he was Sheev.
Oh!
There's very little chance the Senate will actually act on the invasion, he says. She asks about Valorum, though. He's been a vocal proponent of ours. Surely his power and might could be enough to help stop them.
He seems like a good enough, reasonable guy.
Well, Palpatine says, Valorum? That bitch is so corrupt.
How corrupt is he?
A Republican representative from Texas took one look at him and said, I'm out.
Oh, shit. Do you have any more?
No, that's the only one.
Oh, that's good.
I figured that covered it.
Yeah.
Dumbfounded at this sick burn by Palpatine, Padme asks what their options are. He tells her the best chance is to push for the election of a stronger Supreme Chancellor, and then starts winking at her for some reason. I didn't get it.
Kind of nudges her with his elbow.
This guy could control the bureaucrats, someone who is wrinkly and has a very large, bizarre haircut, and also is in this room right now and totally isn't evil. This would, of course, involve a call for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum, but he's been our strongest supporter, says Padme. Palpatine tells her the only other option is to plead their case to the court systems. But as you guys know, the courts take even longer to act than the Senate.
Ooh, sick burn with a gavel. You've got to admire Palpatine's just brazen confidence in this scene. The whole time he basically is like, shut up, Queen. I'm not listening to your concerns. Like, we need to bulldoze over everything that's in place and elect a new person.
Well, one thing I will say is I really like the casting here of Ian McDiarmid, even though it was, of course, made 30 years ago or whatever. because he is a theater actor.
Yeah.
So he's got that pastiche, the grandiose
He's
ability.
really doing the shush little girl here a lot, and like very effectively just basically saying here is what the plan will be, whether you agree with it or not.
Yeah, and she doesn't completely buy in like a lot of people will.
She's very skeptical.
But she does understand that her actions are limited, right?
It's only their later maneuvering, I think, that kind of seals the deal and makes her have to act how she does.
Well, yes, because he does establish that, look, the Chancellor's corrupt. He says what's going to happen.
Yes.
And then as it happens a little bit later on, he says, see?
Gives her no choice because she's actually seeing it with her own two eyes from inside her chicken costume.
He says realistically they might just have to accept Federation control for the time being. Padme replies that is something I cannot do, and the scene ends with an ominous tone.
And man, tensions are just really high at this point for all parties involved. Jar Jar is even worried that he'll get quote-unquote pasted.
And that's a terrible thing. He thought he was going to get crunched.
Yeah, you don't want to.
Now he's going to get pasted.
Would you rather be crunched or pasted? We talked about crunched versus diced last time.
Yeah, I'm leaning pasted because I don't know what that is.
Me too.
Like
pasted could just be somebody puts some gross stuff on you, but you can wash it off.
Like a tar and feathering almost. Oh, that's even too
that
aggressive.
Would be painful, yeah.
What's the other thing you do? Like people who buy fur coats, like fake blood. It'd be like that.
Yeah, or like flubber.
That happens a lot in Congress, right?
Yeah.
People get flubber thrown on them.
I wish they did. I wish there was a big nose they had to stand under from Nickelodeon that would sneeze all over them when they did a bad evil thing.
They get hit with a pie.
Oh, yeah. Palpatine would be hit with a lot of pies.
And he would, like, his face would turn beet red and then it would cook the pie.
This is the Looney Tunes version of Palpatine right here.
We brought it back, yeah.
We did. I don't know how we turned Palpatine specifically into a Looney Tune.
Steam comes out of his ear and it sounds like a train whistle.
It almost does later on when he's more evil, more outwardly evil.
It's almost time to visit the Jedi Council, but before we do, we need to take a quick break. Now, it's my understanding that the advertising department here at the Bootu Inc. Studios has been approached by Chancellor Valorum's re-election campaign, so they ended up purchasing some ad space here. Let's go ahead and take a listen, but then when we return, weird alien monsters. Chancellor Valorum is a man of the people. All of the people.
Hello, my fellow Nebulians. It is I, Finis Valorum, the trusty Chancellor you've come to know and not mind too much. With me, things are simple. Make Naboo shine brighter than any other planet in the Chamal sector.
Since he entered politics as a young man on Coruscant, this lifelong civil servant has worked tirelessly for one thing: equality.
I understand that many Nebulian humans struggle to understand my support for our Gungan neighbors. Well, Gungans are Nebulians too. In fact, the Gungan species is native to Naboo, while humans and elders found their way to this beautiful planet later on.
Chancellor Valorum knows what matters the most to people suffering on the planet Naboo during these tough times.
Each day, millions of loud, brash amphibians go without their daily supply of Cambalictus and Cocoa Claw.
While his opponents are busy campaigning, Chancellor Valorum works tirelessly to fix the problems real people deal with every day.
It is our supreme duty to choose a path that leads to dignity for all species here on Naboo, just so long as we don't have to make too many waves in doing so.
Chancellor Valorum is a man who listens to the experts and acts decisively in times of strife.
Sure, I have not yet studied the ins and outs of the Trade Federation, nor do I technically understand the finer points of any blockades that might be going on currently. If I were to investigate too deeply, it might lead to some sort of unpleasant conflict or argument, and that simply isn't in the spirit of House Valorum.
Your Chancellor has faith in our government, faith in the elected officials to do what's right, and faith in you, the people.
Viceroy Newt Gunray assures me of the legality of the measures taken in recent days. It's often better just to look the other way and just sort of assume things will work themselves out. I'm sure my opponent would agree and certainly has no intentions to undermine democracy at its core.
So when you place your ballot on the vote of no confidence, ask yourself, who is the man or space monster I want to lead the people?
And remember, don't try and beat 'em, valor 'em!
Okay, it's time for some weird fucking aliens, it's always time for that.
I love weird aliens.
We just get to see them. We're in the Tower of the Jedi Council with Qui-Gon Jinn pleading the case to train Anakin before the Wise Council. He's alongside his Padawan Obi-Wan. Now, we all know Mace Windu and Yoda, but I thought I could also mention and talk about a few of the other members present that aren't quite as well known. These are the members of the Jedi Council. Brian, I've printed out a picture for you. You can take a look at this as I explain these characters. So you're intimately familiar with them.
These pictures you give me are very, very, very helpful because I've seen these people. Oh my, yeah.
And I'll put this up on Twitter at some point, so if you want to see this image, feel free to check us out. I'm at Manly Van Lee. Brian is at
Loud Guitar Brian.
There you go, cool stuff. First off, we have Yaddle, who is a female member of Yoda's species, and boy, she looks like she fell on some hard times, doesn't she, Brian?
Yeah, she has a really weird hairline. It kind of starts like toward the very back of her head. And Yoda, to my knowledge, doesn't really have hair. He's got little sprigs.
Well, he's 900 years old. I can't remember how old Yaddle was in continuity, but much younger.
I hope there's not too big of an age gap.
Grogu.
Because, yeah, exactly.
Well, I recommend everyone Google her name. Look at this terrifying puppet that she was.
Who Yoda thinks is super hot.
Well, I mean, you've never seen another female Yoda, so you take what you can get.
Or any kind of Yoda.
Next, we have Ki-Adi-Mundi, who basically has a giant dick for a head. And by the way, there are 2 brains in that big old noggin. That's why it's so big. In his species, males are extremely rare, so he was permitted to marry and father children despite being in the Jedi Order.
Wow,
Factoid.
They put him up for stud like a horse.
They really did. And
Ki-Adi-Mundi.
one of the best memes out there is, I think it's the next movie when he has his "What about the attack on the Wookiees?" line.
Yeah.
He is hologrammed into the Jedi Council. So somebody put a meme out where it pans out to show where he is, and he's at a strip club while they're at the thing. It's perfect. We have Even Piel, who looks like a Caucasian version of Yoda with his big floppy ears. He's actually a different species, though, and we see him in a Clone Wars arc where he dies protecting Jedi secrets. Kind of neat. He's cranky and curmudgeonly, but well-intentioned or whatever.
Lots of veins scars running through his face.
Missing an eye, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it looks like it's kind of just sealed itself over time.
We have what I can only imagine is one of your biggest nightmares, which is Oppo Rancisis. He is a Jedi elderly snake monster wizard.
Yeah, and he has kind of bone-sharp fingers. He's pretty cool.
Yeah, when you think about it, when you're like, I'm going to make a Jedi be a cool snake who's like real old and has seen some shit.
He has a lot of white hair on his face and head. He has kind of a little bit of a Kung Fu master look to him.
That's definitely going like a Jaime or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, he actually survived the Great Jedi Purge of Order 66, and nothing is known of his death.
It looks like he's survived a great number of things.
He's been around for 6 million years. Eth Koth is a devil with some really cool horns. He's a Zabrak, by the way, so like Darth Maul.
That was my next question, but he looks like a fucking soft-ass Zabrak,
He is. Yeah, and I can't remember if I kept it in. I kind of
like little rounded horns, softer facial features. Has not tried to murder anybody.
Not yet. Well, Zabrak kind of took 2 different paths. There was a bunch of them that basically went to work for the Republic and became commandos, and in this case, a Jedi. And then there's the Knight brothers, who are basically the Zabraks that the men are just labor. It's the Knight sisters who run the society.
Oh.
And anyway, that's
like
where Darth Maul came from.
Type of situation.
Pretty close to it, actually.
Yeah.
In fact, Nicolas Cage is there trying to kill all of them. And anyway, they kill him because they think it'll help their honey crop grow better.
Oh, okay. I kind of vaguely remember this.
Mm-hmm.
It's really too bad that Nicolas Cage wasn't somewhere in the Star Wars universe.
I'm shocked it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
I think it will at some point.
What's your ideal Nicolas Cage in the Star Wars universe type of role?
That's tough because I could see him wanting to be or playing the super skilled, ancient, wise Jedi.
Yeah.
Or as like a smart mouth smuggler.
I kind of like the idea of like an old, drunk, smart mouth smuggler who
has to redeem himself.
Has to redeem himself, but maybe it takes him a few tries, like he betrays the good guys a couple times first.
I could see that working.
Yeah, be pretty fun.
Get George on the horn, even though he has nothing to do with it now.
And let's see, what could we call it? Not Leaving Las Vegas. He's been in a movie called that, and there's no Las Vegas in Star Wars.
I guess if you want to go with that, there's Nar Shaddaa, which is like a Hutt control casino planet.
So yeah,
it'd be
so we'll say
Leaving Nar
Leaving
Shaddaa.
Nar Shaddaa. Yeah,
Perfect.
let's call it that.
Actually, sounds kind of cool.
I'd watch it. In fact, this sounds way better than any of the Star Wars spinoffs of late.
You know what? Let's just talk about that the rest of this episode.
No. We need to talk about Yariel Poof.
Well, first, Eth Koth, he story-wise was eventually kicked out of the Jedi Council, and he retires to become a priest on some backwater planet. Vader and the Inquisitors go and hunt him down in the comic series. But originally what happened with the character behind the scenes is he was played by one actor in these scenes, and Lucas repurposed a lot of these cuts that they took from this Jedi Council for Episode 2. But in the Battle of Geonosis, which is where Anakin, Padme, and Obi-Wan are caught in Episode 2, and all those bugs are in the arena.
Yeah.
Anyway, they had to get a different actor because they filmed that in Australia. Initially, it was supposed to be the same character, played by those two guys, but they convinced George Lucas to say, no, it's a different character. So really, there's two separate ones.
Wow. So how many people do you think know that? Like 5? 8?
10 to 12.
Okay.
I'd say comfortably double digits. And then, as you mentioned, Yariel Poof is a Quirmian Jedi.
Sure.
Really long neck. He has 2 brains also and 2 sets of arms. You
Real
can't see it
tiny.
there.
Must be tiny brains. His head's like a little light bulb.
He was considered a very mischievous Jedi Master who would play pranks on all of them.
Wow, he's not even wearing a backwards hat or anything.
He does ride a skateboard to the Jedi Council.
Oh, that's cool.
He understands headwear as offensive to some people.
Especially, like, you can't even see it with a head that small.
And then finally, we have Plo Koon, who looks like a piece of chicken fried steak with a mask on it.
Kind of like a xenomorph, too.
A little, like a brown one.
Right, the coloration is way different. He's not dripping.
Well, which they do. That is a good way to describe them. I didn't think of that. One time I had a dream that you got really into Plo Koon as a character.
Okay.
Like, we're just psyched about him. You're like, he's the best
I'll tell you
Jedi
this right
Master.
now, pal. I think I can make this a reality.
So I actually, and this happened like 3 years ago, I put your picture on my phone as Plo Koon.
That rules.
It still is that to this day.
I'm going to have to do some more research about Plo Koon, because looking at him, I can get behind it.
He's a cool guy. One of the famous things he does in the Clone Wars series is he's leading a battalion of clones to fight something or other, and the mission is not a success. So the lead clone is like, go on, sir, we'll take care of this for you. And he's like, no, I will stay back and protect you. So that's how he talks. And the clone goes, but we're meant to be expendable. We're clones, sir. And he goes, not to me.
Yeah.
And he saves them all.
What a good dude. Also, yeah, is his brain exposed?
Maybe.
I don't know. He's weird looking.
He just looks like he sat in front of a candle for a little too long.
He might have. He might have fallen asleep there.
Oh, he also, I think, is the one that found Ahsoka when she was a
really?
baby. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool.
So she holds a special place in her heart for him. Anyway, Qui-Gon tells this whole council about Darth Maul attacking him and tells them he believes the only logical answer is that this was a Sith Lord trained in the Jedi arts. Now, the hubris of the Jedi is immediately apparent here because Ki-Adi-Mundi scoffs and says, that's impossible. The Sith have been gone for 1,000 years. Mace Windu says there's no fucking way the Sith could have returned without them knowing. They
Not
know.
on my fucking plane.
They are almighty and powerful, and we're perfect, and we never do anything wrong, and we know what's happening everywhere. We're Jedi.
To be fair, even Qui-Gon, who's bringing this to their attention that the Sith might be active again, he's got another thing more on his mind than he does the Sith returning.
He does. Now, let me ask this. We discover the overarching concept of the prequels is that the Jedi have lost their way.
Yeah.
They become too embroiled in, well, playing for
Too
power.
complacent.
Do you think that this scene was set up to introduce that topic to us, or did it just happen and
If
we pushed
not,
it?
like, it does work that way. Like, everybody makes it pretty clear that they're just stodgy and they just want to have their meeting like normal and not talk about any crazy Sith stuff that might undermine their ability to play bridge later.
They just want to talk about Yariel Poof, I don't know, skateboarding his way across Coruscant throughout the day.
Yeah, or like when he pantsed the dean back at NSU, that's Naboo State University.
Oh, okay. I hear they have a great
kind of
liberal
weird
arts
that he
program.
rose to prominence, though, going to a state school. Pretty cool, though.
It happens from time to time.
Real rags to a different kind of rag.
Well, Yoda says, never say never, and he isn't quite as willing to commit to we're too good for this to have happened, Mace Windu.
Yoda wants to mull it over later. He wants to give it more thought, which is the real correct approach here, I think.
Yeah, he agrees to get to the bottom of the whole situation. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are dismissed, but Qui-Gon hangs back until Yoda sighs and tells him to speak his mind. You know this has happened a lot.
Yeah.
Because we've found out that Qui-Gon Jinn is kind of a thorn, a nuisance to the Jedi Council at times. So they're all just reacting like,
and especially because Yoda's like, what bigger news could there even be
than a Sith?
Yes.
Their ancient enemy.
So Yoda needs to meditate on this, and Qui-Gon has this other dumb thing that he's bothering him with at the same time.
Yeah, he says, I have come across a Vergence in the Force. It's a boy with the highest midichlorian count ever seen. And you know what? It's even possible he was conceived by midichlorians, because when I tapped that Skywalker ash, he said it was her first time. All the council members give each other shocked looks, and Windu says, you refer to the prophecy of the one who will bring balance to the Force?
I don't presume to.
But you do. Revealed your opinion is.
I request the boy be tested, Master.
Oh. Trained as a Jedi, you request for him,
Finding him was the will of the Force. I have no doubt of that.
And yet again, the council members are just like, oh, Qui-Gon, stop.
There is no one interested in this Anakin situation other than Qui-Gon. No one. Not Obi-Wan, not Yoda, not Mace Windu.
Well, Windu finally relents. He says, all right, just whatever, bring him before us. We'll
and
do
that's
the thing.
the tone, is whatever. Just fucking shut him. Let Qui-Gon do this so that we can get back to trying to save the galaxy.
I do like that Yoda is maybe a bit mischievous here. And he's like, oh, think that you do,
Oh, come in here with a head full of your own fucking ideas, you do.
900 years have I not lived for you to lecture me.
You'd think some form of respect earned would be over such time has passed.
Now time to bring out the horse, it is.
Yoda going to get fucked up.
Yoda getting his dick wet tonight.
God.
That's so gross.
Yaddle, come hither.
Like poetry, it is.
Like water pouring into more water, our bodies will intertwine as one, Yaddle and I.
Okay, we're done. We're done with that.
Yep, shut it down.
Anakin has arrived at the Queen's bedroom, and a guard lets him into the room, but one of the handmaidens tells him Padme's not here. The Queen steps around the corner, and Anakin
She's
says...
hiding under the bed, trying to avoid your gaze.
Anakin says, oh, hi, Padme. Well, what I mean to say is, oh, you're totally the Queen and not Padme. Hello, where's Padme? Well, she tells him she sent Padme on an errand, and he says he's on his way to the Jedi Temple and may never see her again, so he came to say goodbye. The Queen tells him, we will tell her you stopped by, and we are sure her heart goes with you. Also, I am not Padme at all. He thanks her and is on his way. We've finally now made it to the most exciting, action-packed part of the movie. The Galactic Senate proceedings.
Oh, yeah. And this, again, like as a young 14-year-old who couldn't be more excited about anything than Senate meetings. Man, what a scene to watch.
I just got to see all these weird Jedi alien, and we saw Yoda for the first time. This is so cool, but I can't wait to get to the Senate proceedings.
It is cool that it takes place inside of a giant space silo.
Where else would you put it?
Yeah, which, you know, at least the setting is interesting. It helps distract from what's really happening. Although it is really goofy a couple of times.
Which I appreciate.
Yeah, I do too. Because you're supposed to take all these characters and what they're talking about really seriously, but then they're floating around on little frisbees.
Chancellor Valorum is proceeding over the Senate, and he says they will now recognize the senator from Naboo. Palpatine's Senate platform whirs and whistles out to the center of the room, and he gives a big old speech about the Trade Federation fucking over his peaceful planet. This leads to the senator platform of Nemoidians to come whirring out, yelling about objecting to the senator's statements. And with a rare showing of having a pair, Valorum tells the frog people he does not recognize them and they need to shut the fuck down.
Yeah, Valorum, I told you. When it comes down to it, when the pavement hits the feet or whatever, Valorum.
That sounds dangerous when you put it that way.
No, I mean, he is pretty easily bowled over shortly after this, but...
Oh yeah, no, he caves almost instantly. Palpatine introduces Queen Amidala, who comes up to the podium and gives a speech with no emotion at all. She alleges that the Trade Federation has deployed droid troops to her planet and is holding their people hostage. The Nemoidians say there's no proof. They demand a caucus be formed and an investigation be put forth. And as the frogs say this, they reveal that they have powerful allies as the cow people from Malastare speak up, and they concur. They wish to see an investigation as well. Just as Valorum begins to speak up about this, a woman next to him whispers in his ear. Palpatine tells Padme, "Into the bureaucrats." Now we'll see this weak-ass bitch Valorum shows true colors.
Palpatine is really, really leaning heavy on the Queen here. Just constantly being like, look how much Valorum sucks. Look at what a fucking little pussy he is. I hate Valorum.
Look how right I am right now.
You know who's probably a really good leader? Is probably me. I don't know. Oh dear, me? Oh yeah, that's not a bad idea.
And right on cue, the toothless, pathetic Chancellor says, "Okay, fine, point conceded to the frog people. Will the Queen defer to the formation of a task force to investigate this matter?" Padme is pissed. She says, "No way, man. I came here to resolve this now. I was not elected to watch my people die while you fuckers sit around and debate it. If this elected body can't get this shit done right now, I believe fresh leadership is required, and I call for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum."
Oh, that plan sounds very familiar. I wonder where that came from.
At this, the Senate erupts into a bunch of huffs and chortles. Delegates from all around the universe get worked up. Valorum reacts to this dagger, which is plunged directly into his heart. He falls back into his chair like he just had the wind knocked out of him. At one point, we even see the delegates from the E.T. the extraterrestrial planet. I don't know if you noticed this. And it was added by Lucas as a nod to Spielberg. Yeah,
That's
they're
great.
in it, the
That's
E.T.
really
creatures.
fun.
They're called Sogians in the Star Wars universe. Mas Amedda, who's the horned vice chair of the Galactic Senate, tries to regain order, but to no avail as the angry mob of senators refuse to calm down. Palpatine whispers to Padme that now they will elect a new chancellor, one who is strong and will not let our tragedy continue. For some reason, he then giggles for 10 minutes and jumps up, clicking his heels together.
And he even says, like, oh, I can't wait to see how evil this new chancellor is.
And then corrects himself, but then giggles some more.
And then, like, he's getting hot from all this jumping around, so he takes his robe off, and he's wearing a shirt that says Sith #1.
Like a t-shirt?
Yeah.
Like Chancellor Palpatine.
And it came
in
from
a
the
t-shirt.
team store. Like, it's an official Sith licensed merchandise.
Well, they have a booth at Disney, of course.
Yeah, of course they do. They got to make their money, too. Just because they're evil doesn't mean they need to be poor.
And Mas Amedda, by the way, the horned guy, he retains his position and works for Palpatine throughout the Clone Wars and as Emperor Palpatine.
Wow, what a fucking bootlicker.
He is, and he loves the power, so he'll do whatever it takes.
Ugh.
So Palpatine's like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, I mean, what would he care?
I have a fluky.
Mm-hmm.
Fluky.
As long as I pay him, presumably, or threaten him.
With lightning bolts. Look, if I went to my job and my boss was like, you need to do this, and then lightning bolted me.
And your boss could shoot lightning bolt out of his fingertips? Yeah.
I'd fucking do it.
There is not a thing I'm not doing if bolting is a threat.
Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon are headed out for romantic chat overlooking the Coruscant skyline, and Obi-Wan is telling his master there's no way the Jedi Council will allow this boy to be trained. He's too old. Qui-Gon assures him it's going to happen, but doesn't tell him why he believes that to be true. Why he believes that, in true Qui-Gon fashion. We get some backstory here where Obi-Wan tells him not to defy the council again, and anyway, if you would just follow the code, you'd be on that council. And what this is about, and it's been mentioned a lot, is Qui-Gon was offered a spot on the Jedi Council, but the Force told him no or whatever, so he's like, nah, I'm good. Also, he'd have to submit to weekly drug tests.
That's totally what it was.
Doesn't want to get
also,
caught.
He overslept for, like, the hearing where they were going to confirm him. That's what really happened. He's like, I just didn't want to. Like, I wasn't feeling it with the Force or whatever.
Do you think he's just constantly late? He's the Jedi that's there 20 minutes late.
He's late all the time because he's like, honestly, time's just kind of a construct. Like, I mean, what's it matter? And that's him sucking on his Jedi bong that he has.
Have you done bong stuff as an adult?
Bong stuff, yeah.
I don't know. I get it, but also it seems like a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. That's my ultimate thing is like, you got to prepare it. If it's not food, I'm not going to do a lot of prep work.
I think that's an excellent way to live your life.
Yeah, I think so too. Food's worth it.
Meanwhile, Anakin is being tested by the Council, the Jedi Council, and he's standing in the middle of the room while Mace Windu uses his e-meter to test his thetans and see how close to clear he is. Actually, it's an iPad, which has schematics from various things, and he's seeing if Anakin can tell what's on the screen using space magic.
Yeah, he's like, is this a circle or a triangle? What do you think it is, Anakin?
And Anakin just says, like, ship, spaceship, spaceship again.
Ball.
Oh, boy, let me tell you, My friend had this ball. We spent hours playing with this ball because of how exciting it is.
Shit, man.
Fuck spaceships. Ball.
Yeah. In a world with fucking Sebulbas running around, people are excited about ball.
After this, Yoda gives Anakin a good once-over and asks him how he feels. The boy tells him cold, so Yoda and the council decide to just start fucking around with him. After telling the boy they can feel he's afraid, Ki-Adi-Mundi pipes up and says, "Your thoughts dwell on your mother," to which Anakin says, "My thoughts dwell on your mother." Yoda tells Anakin he thinks he's afraid to lose his mother, and Anakin gets a little indignant because, he's a kid who doesn't want his mom to be dead, Yoda.
Yoda's being kind of a dick here, but I mean, to Yoda's point, I think he's like, if I just roast the kid a little bit, he'll back out, and Qui-Gon will give up on his pursuit.
Yeah, here's the thing. That doesn't happen. You picked the two worst people to do that to.
What he should have done is get Qui-Gon so stoned he doesn't remember what's going on, and then just kind of send the kid back to Tatooine.
Qui-Gon, do you remember the little boy you got? Fuck, I just remember like some seal that was stereotype, and I don't know, was I on Tatooine?
I went to a race, I think.
Oh, that's right. I remember getting to meet Ben Quadraneros, the coolest thing that I've ever seen.
I don't think that would be something that stuck in his memory, if we're being honest.
I almost said coolest person, but I don't know if that applies
no, I don't
to Ben
think person,
Quadraneros.
Bugman.
It's pretty clear at this point the council's made up its mind, and Yoda sighs and tells Anakin, "I sense much fear in you," and shakes his head. Padme is overlooking the city, worried about her people, and Jar Jar...
And this is cool, actually, because this mirrors the scene with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan overlooking the city. And it's just like, you have two Jedi, like the sort of the present and the future of the Jedi Order and what can happen, discussing kind of the future of civilization at Coruscant, right? Like, such a big imperial city. And then we mirror that, we have the Queen of Naboo who's going through... Oh yeah, Jar Jar Binks is there.
No, I keep going with the analogy.
No,
it fits perfectly.
You just yucked all over it.
Well, and remember, they did this same thing too before she left Theed, where she was overlooking the city as the battle droids came.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's to show her being deep in thought.
It's also, and I like that. Like, she has a lot of decisions to make, but then Jar Jar comes in and it's like, sort of, maybe that's a metaphor for the series as a whole, like, Look at this beautiful idea. Nope, it's ruined.
Jar Jar comes up and reveals that he thinks the Gungans are going to be found and attacked too, but they have a grand army, so they aren't going down without a fight. Maybe puts a little something in her ear, a little bug in her ear, saying that there's an army here that could be useful.
You do have to be careful, though, when you say bug in her ear in Star Wars, because it might be an actual bug man or something.
Ben Quadraneros is standing with his finger in her ear.
Yeah, I don't know how big he is to scale.
What if he was just like a couple inches tall, but the framing of the movie
his little
showed
pod
it off?
racer is tiny. What if to lose a pod race, he just fucking turned a lamp on somewhere, and just like with Watto and Ben Quadraneros, flies off to be near the lamp.
He's just distracted, banging into it as hard as he can.
Yeah,
Bugs are so stupid.
He won every year until we turn that lamp on.
You have to do it during the day, because otherwise at night it's too distracting. No flash photography, please. Just then, Captain Panaka and Chancellor Palpatine excitedly come into the room, and Palpatine is grinning ear to fucking ear.
From the second he started unveiling this plan, he's just had a little pep in his step.
Yeah, they reveal he has been selected to possibly replace Valorum as Supreme Chancellor in a special runoff election. Palpatine tells her, "Your Highness, if I'm elected, I put an end to corruption. In fact, I'll put an end to the entire Senate, also become Emperor, and rule with an iron fist. And did you know I can shoot lightning bolts out of my hands? I mean, I'll take care of the bad guys. That's what I'll do. Everything will be good.
Even if I go away for a long time, I'll be back."
She asks who else has been nominated for a space promotion, and I know I'm dying to know too as a watcher here. Bail Antilles of Alderaan is one of the other candidates. He's related to Breha Organa, who is Bail Organa's wife, the parents of Princess Leia.
Yes.
Future adoptive parents of Princess Leia.
So a very major character that the audience immediately knows who we're talking about here.
Jimmy Smits, yes.
Yes.
No, I guess at this time you wouldn't have a fucking clue.
Right?
You just know Organa. No, he doesn't say Organa here. He just says Antilles, which doesn't mean anything.
Until the second movie, I don't think you'd have any way of knowing, right?
Although here, Antilles would be weird because in the original trilogy, there's Wedge Antilles, who's the X-Wing pilot, and Captain Antilles, who's another character in that. So they've used that name a lot.
They've used that name a lot, and those characters are not political figures at all.
No, Wedge is a fighter.
Yeah, he's like a low-level military rebel.
In the Legends continuity, he becomes the leader of Rogue One and basically has to kind of become a politician because everyone's dead. And he doesn't really want to do it, but he's a hero. He was there for both Death Star
and his name is a good kind of potato.
Wedge, it's a great kind of potato. Plus, if you're, a little close to the green,
right, not
you
too
don't
far
want to go
away.
too far. And of course, we know Bail Organa and so forth, Breha Organa, because we watched Kenobi, Obi-Wan Kenobi. I keep calling it Kenobi because that's what they called it initially.
Yeah,
and then they named it the full name.
Too.
So
okay.
it
that must
me
be
up.
why, because I have the same problem, even though I've never seen technically the show titled anything but Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, so we did cover that on the Bootu Boys, our other podcast, where we make fun of TV shows, to coincide with the release of this podcast. Both of those episodes are already out by now, so if you want to hear more Star Wars talk for a more recent show, go check that out. And we also have Spencer there, who's not a big Star Wars fan at all, so it's kind of fun to get that different perspective in there as well.
You'll find yourself saying, you'll see so much Bail Organa, you'll be saying, holy smits.
Ain Lee Team is the third candidate for this position, and he's one of those cow guys who spoke up in favor of the Nemoidians and the Trade Federation.
So another, again, instantly identifiable character that kids are like, oh, wow, one of my favorites.
I love Ain Lee Team. Maybe I'll get him in a Senate costume and his Chancellor costume.
I hope my toy comes with a little bill that he introduces.
He chews on grass for a long time.
Look, a pair of glasses that has 3 lenses.
But Palpatine says, we've got this thing in the bag. We'll get good sympathy votes because of the planet situation. And of course, I'm the sexiest of the 3 candidates without question, so we're good.
And then he probably cackles again.
Padme tells Palpatine she's worried by the time this is all resolved, nothing will be left of their planet. She says, Senator, this is your arena. I must return to mine. I'm going to go back to Naboo to punch some battle droids. He pleads with her to remain here where it's safe, but she tells Panaka to prepare a shuttle. Before she leaves, she tells the future Chancellor she has no faith in the Republic any longer. But I pray that you can bring order and reason back.
Yeah, that's the one guy you're not going to get your prayer answered for sure.
It is night now, and the Jedi Council has dimmed down the lights. They lit some incense. It's Yariel Poof's turn to pick the music.
What did he go with?
Of course he went with Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah, he's really into that. I know. And it's weird because Mace Windu prefers animals. It's a little more experimental, a little more guitar-driven.
Mm-hmm. But, when it's the other person's turn to pick,
yeah, you got to be respectful.
Go with it. But first, Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Anakin are in the center of the room, and the Council is giving them their verdict on training the boy. They do say the Force is strong in him, but he's too old. Obi-Wan had it right.
Yep. Also, to me, I may be just reading into this. Everybody looks tired.
They do look exhausted.
They're just kind of like, what are we doing at night still talking about this shit?
All fucking day, Qui-Gon's just pestering them.
Again, with the Sith issue looming overhead.
Well, Qui-Gon gets pissed and says, fine, I'll train him. Obi-Wan's good to go. Go send him somewhere else. Whatever, I don't care. Obi-Wan chimes in with, oh yeah, I'm totally good enough to be a Jedi. Let me do the
he's
trials.
Saying, like, fucking getting a promotion. I didn't even know this was going to happen today.
This will turn out fine for me by the end of this movie.
This boy thing, I don't know how I feel about it one way or another, but I'm sure it won't turn out too disastrously.
Probably won't involve me anymore. I'm going to be a Jedi. I can go do my own thing.
Yeah, I definitely won't have that kid.
Mace and Yoda wave all this stuff off, saying, we'll deal with it later. Right now, the Senate is voting on a new Supreme Chancellor, and Amidala is returning to Naboo. Mace seems like he's kind of coming around on the whole Sith business finally. He tells Qui-Gon to go with the Queen and see if her attacker returns.
And I think that's because Dark Side of the Moon kind of loosened him up.
Yeah, it put him in the mood to maybe be a little more open.
Opened his mind, man.
Mm-hmm. And they had Wizard of Oz in the background. It syncs up.
On a projector.
Like a crappy projector and
it's
not a hologram.
Yoda's and he won't fucking buy a new one.
But he also kind of likes the old technology.
Yeah, the blips and the cigarette burns, he loves it. Yeah, he's reel to reel in it.
There's a thing, and you probably know more about this than I do. They did a study of old, 45s albums where the frequency they put off is pleasing to people. So that's why a lot of people do prefer the old, to play a record.
Oh, that kind of makes sense. Yeah, I really do think there is some sort of crackly sitting by a fire stuff.
It
going
makes
on
you
there.
feel good to hear. And I didn't really even grow up with that, but I do like it.
I didn't either, actually. I grew up with parents who I don't think knew about art, really.
Well, I'm kind of surprised since you're so much older than me. I figure you did have the record player and all that.
Yeah, I had those other 6 months that you'd be shocked what did happen, but I didn't have a record player during that time.
Well, Mace tells Qui-Gon to go with the Queen and see if the attacker returns. Maybe they can get to the bottom of all this. Qui-Gon Jinn's still pissed about the whole Anakin thing, but he just bows and silently agrees to do the mission.
Yeah, and we got to get everybody that's important going back with the Queen, too.
Mhm.
So that means Jar Jar.
I guess they're taking him back home.
And he screams Wisa going home once he finds out.
The Nebulian shuttle is now being prepared to depart, and Obi-Wan is nagging Qui-Gon about him still wanting to train the boy. Says, Master, he's dangerous. Why can't you see that? Little Australian there.
Yeah, you went into a little Edgerton territory versus McGregor territory.
Young McGregor's hard. I can handle the next
Yeah.
2 movies. This one's a little
He
tough.
speaks very softly here, too, which I think is an intentional choice because it's different in the next movie.
Well, he's the master then.
Yeah.
The Elder Jedi tells Obi-Wan to shut up and go wait in the car. So he does. After Ewan McGregor leaves, Anakin tells Qui-Gon he doesn't want to be a burden, but Qui-Gon eases his fear. Then Anakin speaks up to answer the question everyone has had for the last 45 minutes. What the fuck is a midi-chlorian?
Master, sir, I heard Yoda talking about midi-chlorians. I've been wondering, what are midi-chlorians?
Midi-chlorians are a microscopic life form that resides within all living cells.
Turns out they're bugs.
Oh, I thought it was a laundry detergent.
Really gets your whites whiter.
Yeah.
We've briefly talked about midi-chlorians to this point, but I do want to bring up that they're some of the most hated things to come out of this movie and the prequels. People really just didn't like the idea, and at the time, the scuttlebutt was that people said it tainted the Force. It's because it's a measurable commodity. I think I'll push back on a little bit and say they don't say it's tiny organisms willing things to happen. They're just saying it's the equivalent of you have an electron in your body, or each thing in the world has a cell in it.
Yeah.
And I think of it more like that.
Yeah, and I get that. I do think it's annoying in a sense of, let's say there's 2 tennis players, and one of them has more tennis chlorians than the other, and then you just kind of know that one's better. I get why people don't like it being a concrete number. Don't you think there's like a way you could do it where it's like a heat map of like, we can tell there's a large concentration, but you're not saying necessarily this guy has the most ever.
Yeah, and I completely agree with everything you're saying. And I think, honestly, the answer was you don't need them.
No.
However, I don't think it's as damning
It's
to have
very
them.
proven that you don't need them because they just quickly abandon them.
Well, and I think the kind of way they push it is that, yeah, Anakin is the best and he has all this high midi-chlorian count, but also there are plenty of guys out there with low midi-chlorian counts who can get a girl pregnant. Or, I mean, who can become really good Jedi.
Right.
So I
Definitely
think that's kind
no
of the way they took it.
subtext there. M count, T count, you know.
There's also this arc on the Clone Wars show that I want to bring up at this point. It's called the Mortis arc. And anyone who's watched the show likely remembers this. It was a big deal when it came out. And essentially it involves Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka. And this is Clone Wars. So Anakin is 20, Ahsoka's 15, 16, whatever it is. And Obi-Wan's middle-aged. A little less than middle-aged. He's a man, though.
Yeah, he's an adult man with adult man problems.
Well, they go to this mysterious planet. I think they had some sort of a signal come out that they needed to get to. So they go there, and essentially they meet the gods of the Force. They're the Father, the Daughter, and the Son. The Father represents balance, or the cosmic force. The Daughter represents the light side, the Son, the dark. And that whole arc basically just tried to introduce intelligent design to Star Wars, in a sense, and I hate that. I think it's questionable best. I didn't like it. People love that arc. I can't stand it.
I don't like the idea of the intelligent design thing kind of being the...
In any...
Yeah, not comfortable with that.
But I think if you're out there and you hate midichlorians, but you like the Mortis arc, that's a little bit hypocritical.
I don't understand how you can particularly feel strongly one way about one and not the other, because they are kind of intertwined.
Having said this now, if there are big fans who really love that, they hate that I just said that. People get mad when you dislike the Mortis arc.
Oh, man.
And the Star Wars fans can get mad about anything, but this one they get really mad about.
So there's a bunch of Mortis heads out there.
Mm-hmm.
Mortis men.
Back to the plot here. Qui-Gon escorts the Queen to the ship. He tells her he's honored to continue to serve her, and he will not let anything happen to her. Jar Jar excitedly bleats out some noises, and then everyone boards the ship to head to Naboo.
That sounds about right.
That's a good summary of pretty much this whole movie.
Yeah, Jar Jar bleats out some noises, and then we go to Naboo.
Next, we get a scene in the Theed Royal Palace where Nute Gunray and Rune Hako are talking to Darth Sidious via hologram.
Yeah, nothing evil going on here.
No, basically they're telling him they have full control of the planet now. Sidious is going to send Maul to help them. But what I really want to point out about this scene is that for some reason, the Palpatine hologram is spinning slowly, like rotating, which means Newt and Rune have to continually walk in a circle around it to stay facing it.
Why?
What is he?
Is he fucking with them?
I think he's fucking with them.
He's got his own little setting. He's like, oh, I'm going to set this on a rotate, so they have to walk their frog asses around.
I'm going to put this on space, YouTube.
I guess we get our exercise for the day, Rune.
You know what Padme said to the pilot of the transport ship, Brian?
What did Padme say to the pilot of the transport ship?
Take me home. Because we find Rick Ollie doing that, just that, and he's showing Anakin a thing or two about ship controls. Of course, he's also giving the young boy some love advice and how to deal with Padme. He says, Padme, she's an easy lover. Back in the ship's throne room, the Queen is being questioned about what it is exactly she's trying to do here. And Panaka says, look, we don't have an army. We can't win a war. Qui-Gon chimes in saying, look, all I can do is protect you. I can't fight a war for you. I'm not sure what it is you're trying to accomplish here by returning to Naboo. But the Queen has an ace up her sleeve. She says, Jar Jar Binks, please come forward. I have a request of you.
Which, why?
And the scene fades.
Yeah.
Ace up her sleeve, Jar Jar.
At this point, you know she must need someone to fall down on command.
Be dumb and goofy. And she couldn't find anyone better.
Yeah.
There's someone dumb and goofy here that could do the job, but she wanted Jar Jar.
Yeah, it's Star Wars. Everybody's dumb and goofy. That's part of the charm.
The transport ship has landed in the forest, and we get a heartfelt moment between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, where the Padawan apologizes to the Elder Jedi for disagreeing with him about the boy, and he goes on to say he's grateful that Qui-Gon thinks he's ready for the trials. The Jedi Master smiles and hugs Obi-Wan, saying, I have a feeling one day you're going to be a great Jedi. Also, always remember to steal a tiny piece of meat anytime you have a big brick of meat.
You're going to want that to feed your space horse.
Jar Jar comes... Listen to the Bootu boys. Jar Jar comes wading out of the swamp, and this reveals Padme's plan was to ask the Gungan army for assistance, but there's a problem. Jar Jar says Ota Gunga has been abandoned. There's no trace of Boss Nass anywhere.
They probably have. Which, how could you not see the guy? He's huge. He's Boss Nass. But they probably heard Jar Jar was coming, and they're like, let's fucking hide so he can't find us.
The entire city.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to go to extreme lengths to get rid of Jar Jar.
Because if he finds one of you, he's going to find all of you.
Captain Panaka casually muses right here in front of Jar Jar that all the Gungans were probably murdered and wiped out. But Jar Jar says, me no think so.
Yeah, I put Panaka is eager to claim genocide.
When things get tough, Jar Jar says the Gungans go to the sacred place, a.k.a. their second hidden city.
What on earth? So they've got like a Matryoshka Russian doll down there of cities. And yeah, so they've got a religious secret place, which we find out is actually very easy to find.
Yeah, well, that's just it. The next scene, it's like, oh, we're going to travel there. Nope, they're just there.
Yeah, I thought we were actually going to get well, not this time around. I've seen this movie a bunch of times.
Wait a minute, it didn't change.
But I thought we were going to get, initially when I saw this, like a cool scene of how they discover this secret place. Nope,
they're right there. The entourage arrives at the sacred place, and we see a lot of Gungans riding lizard horses alongside giant stone heads, ziggurats out there in the forest. Roose Tarples announces the arrival of Queen Amidala from Naboo, but before Amidala can speak up, Jar Jar says, hey, yo, Daddy, big Boss Nass, Your Honor.
Horrifying.
What he says.
It is what he says. Would it be fair to say that the fate of the galaxy rests in the grease-stained hands of Boss Nass at this point?
I think that's a very fair thing to say. I mean, maybe at this point you would say the fate of this planet, but from hindsight,
ultimately,
it's everything.
Right.
Technically, if he didn't help, no, I think Palpatine would have gotten there another way.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There you can argue
it's
butterfly
really tough
effect,
to
all
say,
that stuff.
Yeah.
Deep thoughts. Is Boss Nass as important as Boss Nass thinks he is?
And I think there's a case to be made that yes, and we all should be counting ourselves among the Nastronauts out there. That's what his fans call themselves.
Well, Nass asks Jar Jar who the others are, even though he was just told who the others were. So Queen Amidala introduces herself again, saying she comes in peace, but Boss Nass is having none of this.
I come before you in peace.
Ah, Nabu Bigun. Yusa bringen the mechanics. Yusa all bombad.
What an insult. Have you ever been called bombad before?
Not so far, man. I bet that stings right to the bone. I think it's really cool how every time Boss Nass talks, he makes sure to put the reverb plug-in on.
What's the Peter Frampton
outdoors.
thing? Where he speaks into the
thing?
Oh, yeah,
the talk box.
Yeah, except Boss Nass has a reverb version. Queen Amidala continues. She has sought out the Gungans to form an alliance. But before she can finish, her lowly handmaiden Padme steps forward, much to Boss Nass's dismay.
Really stepping out of line there.
Ooh, she reveals she's the real queen.
Holy shit.
This came from out of nowhere, Brian.
You know what's probably we should do now is have reaction shots of every single person that's in the movie.
But here's the thing. Everyone except Jar Jar is like, yeah, it's a queen. Of course it
is.
Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon give each other a little sly look. Jar Jar goes, but that's it.
Yeah, and then poops his pants.
I mean, he was caked in shit the whole movie, right? He had to have been.
All the Gungans are. They don't have bathrooms or plumbing, I don't think.
Do you think it's like a bird where it's both number 1 and number 2 all mixed into one?
It is, but like fish, it's pellets.
It's pellets.
Yeah.
Okay. And sometimes they're square like
wombats. But they're pretty big. Because Jar Jar is not small.
How tall do you think Jar Jar is?
Like 6'2"?
At least, because I think he's almost, if not taller than Liam Neeson.
Yeah, I bet he's pooping out like these big 9x4 solid rock pellets that smell horrible.
What if they used like litter boxes?
Oh, God.
You had to scoop?
You so gross.
Really? You think I took it too far? We had been too far by this point.
I know, but I was just picturing like every ship has to have a sand bin in the corner, and Jar Jar's just pulling his pants down, pooping in it.
He's like trying to bury it.
Trying to bury it, but he's scratching the walls of the ship. Jar Jar, what are you doing back there? Misa not want to be trapped.
Queen Padme continues saying their civilizations have not always agreed, but they should be united in this cause. The Trade Federation threatens all that we both hold sacred, so we must combine forces to defeat the evil Sassbot army. She drops to her knees and tells the enormous fish lizard man they are his humble servants, and she begs for his help.
Okay, everything she said up to that point until she threw herself on her knees and said, "We are your humble servants, we beg for your help," I don't think he's even listening.
No, he wasn't paying attention.
I think it's as soon as she begins to grovel, that is the language Boss Nass speaks.
Well, after a pause, the bloated figure says, "You, sir, don't thinking you better than us? Maybe we, sir, being friends."
Misa, state what transpired just now, rather than reacting in character.
Are you ready for it, Brian?
I'm ready.
Because next he lets out a hearty... second to the movie.
I need a towel then.
Made myself dizzy with that one. It's at this moment that the Jedi have been thinking it's possible this Gungan army isn't going to be as useful as they once thought.
Yeah.
We'll see. Well, I believe that's a good time to go ahead and take a quick break. In the meantime, I believe we've heard from Ainley Team's campaign, and they have also wished to air their ads, so they purchased some ad space. Let's take a listen. We'll be back soon. Our top story this hour, a special election for Supreme Chancellor of the Galaxy is underway, but can a third-party candidate make a difference? Conservative firebrand Ainley Team likes to think so.
I'm Ainley Team, and I want to be your Chancellor.
The ornery Grand Senator from the planet Malastare is running a campaign on personal freedoms and pro-space Second Amendment gun rights.
Listen, I'm a self-made billionaire cow person from Malastare, and I ain't beholden to no lobbyists or special interest groups like those other fat cat candidates. I'm pro-war, pro-nuke gun right, and pro-keeping what you earned. If it were up to me, I'd make lightsaber duels the official method for solving space disputes.
Team's no-nonsense, no-tolerance approach to politics has the other candidates, quote, shaking in their Rancor skin boots.
Of course I put my credits where my mouths are, so that's why I've selected the Admiral to be my running mate. Admiral Raddus, that is. He's a straight-shooting guppy who don't take no bull.
This is Admiral Raddus. We have to press the attack.
The Hollow Channel 8 news team has the inside scoop on this story, and we've obtained hidden footage from the other candidates as they discuss their thoughts on Ainley Team's candidacy. Let's listen in.
Chancellor Valorum, it seems you have a competitor for the office of Supreme Chancellor. His name is Ainley Team. Do you recall said name?
Ainley Team, yes. Do you remember at the last leadership meeting, someone stuffed boogers in my Chancellor's folio? Oh, well, it's no bother to me. Hand me my bag of space candy. I must return to the orphanage at once.
Ainley Team, he's a coward and not worth my time. If he were here now, I'd lightning bolt him so good. Democracy is wonderful, and the people shall make their will known.
Time will tell if the galaxy is ready to elect its first three-eyed cow monster to its highest office, but if there's one thing Ainley Team knows, it's that he's going to put up a fight.
I often remember what my mama told me when I was just a young calf. She said, Ainley, don't trust in nothing your many eyes can't see. I'm Ainley Team, and I approve of this message.
Newt Gunray is once again talking to the hologram of Darth Sidious.
It's half the movie.
And he reveals that they found the Nebulian starship and will find the Jedi and Queen soon. Sidious is a bit perplexed at this. He says, this is unexpected. It's too aggressive a move for her. He addresses Darth Maul, who is now physically in the palace, telling Darth Maul to be careful and let the Jedi make the first move. Maul says, yes, my master. And that's it. That's the last we're going to hear him speak.
Yeah.
Last line. Oh, well, unless you count like a...
Yeah, there are some, fighting effects done probably later.
You know what? By the way, when we get to the big fight between Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Darth Maul, that actually wasn't the soundtrack playing. That was Darth Maul twirling around going...
That's awesome. That makes it even more impressive that he was able to do what he did, especially that kind of offsets the fact where it sucks that Obi-Wan got stuck waiting behind a turnstile for part of the fight.
What if it just was a turnstile and he just couldn't figure out how to get past it? He's like,
or
I'm
a
master,
red light
I can't
and he
step
just
over
doesn't
it.
go. He's like, well, I'm supposed to obey the rules of the Force.
The Nebulians and Gungans are next making battle plans on the great fields of Naboo, which are totally where that Windows XP background was taken.
It looks just like it. Very clear skies, rolling hills.
Beautiful. Boss Nass is pleased at Jar Jar Binks bringing the Gungans and the Nebulians together, so the boss says he's going to honor Jar Jar by making him a Bombad General. And so Jar Jar passes out. But wait a second, I thought Bombad was just bad.
So up to this point, there is no reason to think Bombad is anything other than a negative.
But I guess in that sense, it could be like, Michael Jackson, bad. Jar Jar, you're bad.
So they're using it in different, you're bad general.
You're a bad general.
You said the sort of general that fights on the battlefield and constantly Cirque du Soleil's their way into some kills.
And it works out. Captain Panaka arrives back at camp. He went and collected police, guards, and an underground resistance movement that had formed on the planet while they were away. He also tells the command crew that the Federation army is a lot larger and stronger than they initially thought. It's not a battle he thinks they can win. Padme reveals the battle is actually just a diversion, one in which the Gungan army acts as a meat shield, while the important characters take the opportunity to launch against the distracted Federation
leadership. She knows
leadership.
What she's doing.
Yeah, she knew. She saw this Gungan army and went, they can die for me.
I would think the same thing.
She says her elite group will enter the palace through secret passages in the waterfalls, then capture the Viceroy, Newt Gunray.
So, again, Newt Gunray taking a very central position in this film's plot.
Yeah, I mean, they say without Gunray, the Federation's fighting forces will be lost and confused.
He's
so
the
evidently,
linchpin.
he is super important.
He knows everything. Newt Gunray.
Big fucking deal, Newt Gunray.
Yeah. Now, no one's considering at this point that Newt Gunray might be reporting to the Sith.
No.
Even though the Sith being back, that's been openly discussed.
True. Although, of course, they're not quite sold it's a Sith, so, they're not sure. And we don't find out until like the last line of the movie that there are always two Sith, a master and apprentice.
Very, very surprised that wasn't brought up earlier in the plot, given that we see Darth Maul fight Qui-Gon briefly.
Well, keep in mind, too, that the Sith have been gone for 1,000 years. So at this point, it's only hearsay, our old ancient enemy.
I guess that's true. I guess I was just expecting that scene to be when
Maybe Yoda says something.
When, or perhaps after Darth Maul, when they're leaving Tatooine, when Darth Maul fights Qui-Gon briefly then, for him then to maybe Qui-Gon to fill in Obi-Wan. There's usually 2 of these guys, too. There might be one that doesn't have cool horns.
Well, to that point, to really get more information as a Jedi, you have to go to the Jedi archives, where you have to mess with that old lady who dismisses everything immediately. So I get it that no one wants to learn anymore.
And the website is unusable.
It has one of those coming soon gifts.
Yeah, if you're not getting a 404 error.
Padme says she's at the same time that this is all going down, sending a piloted squad to take out the droid command ship orbiting the planet. She asks what Qui-Gon thinks of the plan, and he says it could work, but it all hinges on capturing Nute Gunray, the key component of this.
And frogs are not easy to catch, to be fair.
They're slimy sometimes.
Yeah, they jump well.
I like frogs.
They're cool. Yeah.
They're neat. We know you don't like spiders. That's in canon.
Not a fan.
Snakes, you don't seem too perturbed by.
I like snakes. I think they're pretty cool.
Can you touch them, or would it take a minute? Okay.
No, I don't have any problems with snakes.
Same thing with frogs?
Yeah, no problem with frogs. It's just a spider thing. I don't know.
Bugs are the one that I don't like to grab. For whatever reason, I just don't like grabbing them.
When I was a kid, I had no problem with bugs either.
Now it's
only spiders. I had a problem with spiders then, even. Which is why I'm glad that there are no giant talking spiders in Star Wars.
On the Jedi Council.
Yeah.
Oh, there are. Lots of them. Ooh, what's his name? Admiral Trench, who's in the Clone Wars show, is just a big tarantula.
I could probably deal with that in the Clone Wars because it's animated.
But if you were
I don't want to see the
action,
unholy live action creation that would be.
He also has a weird speech impediment. He goes like, kind of like Boss Nass does.
Look, I mean, you're really shaming the guy. He's a talking spider.
You know what? Good for him then. He's made it this far. I'm not holding that against him.
He has big fangs in his face.
Back in the palace, Nute and co. have decided to switch it up, and instead of riding on a thrown spider himself, he split out a small one, which is now walking in front of him while displaying a hologram of Darth Sidious. They gave their TV a little walking, throne.
I like to think that Darth Sidious asked for that. He's like, you walk, you put me on top of that thing.
But also the actor is clearly marching because they didn't quite know how they were going to put this in the movie. So he's just
it's really awkward looking.
Maybe he's got to get his Pilates in.
It's maybe the most awkward looking thing I've seen since the Senate thing when Nute Gunray sort of descends on his frisbee.
Gunray reveals that they have witnessed a large army of primitives gathering on the swamp, and he's sending all of his forces to fight them. Sidious says this will work to their advantage, and when Nute asks if he has the go-ahead, the Sith says, wipe them out. All of them.
Do they all look like the Jar Jar one? Yes, please, just wipe them out.
Kill them all. And Nute goes, I'm pretty sure the last part of that was unnecessary. Wipe them out, covered it.
Really a slippery slope when you agreed to get into politics. I did not see myself being a murderer.
He suddenly has a conscience.
Yeah. Can I get out of this still?
Ruin, let us run away to the shores of Naboo.
Ruin, I did this to give us and our future children a better life.
The glorious Gungan army is now marching towards the battlefield. We see Gungans riding big lizards, even larger giant lizards.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the big crazy monster things. And of course, they have things containing the bluest balls you've ever seen in your life. Roose Tarples yells to starten up the shield, and they activate a large blaster fire shield which envelops their army just as the loud thrum of the Federation battle tanks approach over the distant hills.
So is this Gungan technology they've developed?
I'm assuming the blue things are probably theirs. I wonder if the shield... No, it is, because you know what? That's what you see when you go to the underwater city.
Yeah.
They have those shields which keep all the water out.
Which is a pretty impressive invention. The balls that just kind of wreak havoc, that are essentially just gelatinous cannonballs, that seems like a true Gungan invention.
It was probably one of these that kid on Tatooine had.
I bet it was.
They were excited to play with.
I get it now.
They go boing boing, and then they kill robots.
Yeah, and they bet they feel interesting.
They're probably not fully dense.
No.
But also firm.
And kind of wavy, yeah.
The droids end up firing several shots, but to the relief of the Gungans, the giant shield which envelops their army holds firm. Meanwhile, in the capital city of Theed, the Jedi, Panaka, the Queen, and Anakin try to sneak around the city, laser pointers as signal devices. Now that they are near the palace, Qui-Gon tells Anakin once they get in to find a place to hide and stay there.
Like you said, Qui-Gon's like, you need to find a place to hide, Anakin, and stay there. Don't mess around. And Anakin's response to this grave situation is, sure. It's great.
Panaka and some of his forces fire in an armored assault tank, causing it to explode, and knock out several nearby droids in the process. This gives the Jedi and Padme the opportunity to get past the forces while they're distracted. The Jedi ignite their lightsabers and escort the Queen into the main building, with Obi-Wan even doing a half-ass spin and swing to take out a couple battle droids.
He's trying a thing out.
This is the part of the problem with the prequels where everything was CGI.
Yeah.
The actors really don't know what it's supposed to look like. And of course, they did the filming like 3 years in advance.
Much newer process for actors back then, too.
So they're probably just like, I don't know, Ewan, just swing your sword around. And he just half-ass does it. And George goes, that'll do.
I think that's good. I don't even know what this will look like.
Newt and Rune are watching the battle unfold on their big screen TV, and they're pissed off the battle's occurring so close to them. Darth Maul says nothing, of course, but does step into view, seeing that the Jedi have made their move. The Resistance forces make it to the main hangar and begin to commandeer some of the fighter ships. They're firing on and being fired at by the battle droids in the process. Many of the ships do make it into orbit, however, including Bravo leader Rick Ollie. Brian, do you know where his ship is and when?
In the air tonight.
Bingo. Anakin climbs into a starfighter and R2-D2 joins him in the droid hull. Ew.
Yeah. I'm sure that coming out, it didn't... Well...
You kept it going.
Yeah, I'm afraid to say anything else.
Back on the fields, the droids realize their weapons can't pierce that big shield, so while the Gungans look on, the droid transport ships open to reveal squads and squads of B-1 battle droids.
Oh, shit. It's a really good thing the Gungans, fortunately, have one of the most technologically advanced weapons on the battlefield. Do you know what that is?
What's that?
Catapult.
Not even a trebuchet. It's a fucking catapult.
It's just a catapult.
This all causes Roose Tarples to gulp and say, ouch time.
Okay. Great part of the movie. A+, 5 stars. The part where Tarple says ouch time.
I want to start using that.
I want to say ouch time a lot now, yeah.
Just in regular parlance.
Stub your toe, ouch time.
I accidentally tripped on the way to work today. Oh, it was real ouch time, huh?
Or if, like, some bomb-bad guy gets in your face, you know.
You say, you keep this up, it's going to be ouch time for you, fella.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
The Nemoidians on the command ship activate the droids, and they begin to march towards the Gungan army. As they pierce the main shield, they begin to fire, but at the same time, the Gungans start throwing their large blue balls around, and whenever they hit a robot, it explodes.
Mm-hmm. These are powerful orbs.
Padme surmises that the Viceroy is likely in the throne room, so they head that direction. Anakin stands up in his ship and says, wait for me! But Qui-Gon tells him to stay in the ship, you'll be safe there. Stay there.
He won't just stop.
You're a little kid in a war zone.
So maybe this is just me as kind of a, how should I describe this, mannered child? Kids in movies are all like this. This is not just an Anakin thing.
Did you ever see movies like that as a kid when a kid does this and think, I should do that, or I should be more like that?
No, it made me fucking nervous. It still does. Like, quit doing that. You're going to get in trouble.
Okay, yeah, that's on brand for you.
Yeah.
I did think, like, I wish I were more like that.
I
want to do that.
To be fair, I did think that. I think that's why I was frustrated with it. It's like, I wish I was daring in any sort of way.
There's little Brian in the theater watching the Phantom Menace with his arms crossed, shaking his head at young boy Anakin. That's just not plausible.
That's just not plausible. Way more plausible was 5 years ago when I thought I was going to be a paleontologist after watching Jurassic Park.
Or when you thought you could run faster by walking like a dinosaur and then your dad walked in on you.
That proceeded, I also got made fun of at recess for doing that same thing once.
Did you ever just take a bite out of a child?
No, I think what I did was cry.
Oh, yeah.
I would assume. I mean, it's, again, very on brand.
You're crying right now.
Yeah, I'm bawling. But it's actually because I'm so upset at the Gungan casualties in this war.
It sure sounds like it. As the group approaches the door, it slides open, and we get one of the most iconic images of this movie. Darth Maul stands on the other side of the door looking cool as fuck, and the familiar Duel of the Fates hook plays. The group stops in their tracks, but Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan continue walking forward as Qui-Gon says, we'll handle this.
Mm-hmm. That's like as close to a one-liner as Qui-Gon's comfortable doing.
And it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. And that does set up, they know what they need to do, and that is kill this horned guy.
Fuck this
devil
old guy
man.
up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Face to face with Darth Maul, the Jedi and Sith, both in unison, start taking off their clothes, and the trio remove their cloaks for better mobility in the fight to come. But I wish they just kept going.
Oh,
like, just down to underwear.
Honestly, if you want to be as fast as you possibly can in your movements,
get rid of that stuff.
Uh-huh.
It's them like glaring at one another as they undo buckles and take
it would
off
make
pants.
it really funny with the dramatic score. Yeah, and they're just like
taking pants off.
Yeah, taking their belt, like my belt. Obi-Wan, my belt buckle is stuck.
Why don't you do your Ewan McGregor here? What would he
Hello
say?
there. Hello, Qui-Gon, if you could just help me a bit with my buckle. It seems to be set a little bit stuck here.
If you thought my Obi-Wan was bad.
What do you mean bad? This is a pretty good Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Sorry, I mean bomb bad.
Bomb bad.
So you can take it either way, good or bad.
That's true. It works both ways.
But just then, several droidicas roll up behind Padme and her group, activating their personal shields and begin firing at them, preventing them from continuing towards Nute Gunray in the throne room. But Anakin and the Starfighter sees this all go down and decides he needs to help.
Again, not being willing to sit still at all.
Got to get involved, man.
Got to.
But it works out, so we should be happy he did it.
Ugh.
We are now treated to the most iconic image from this movie. Darth Maul activates his lightsaber and a crimson blade comes out the side of the weapon. But that's not all. Another blade comes whirring out the other side, and the soundtrack kicks into full gear at this
and
point.
this is when you know this is an iconic villain that'll be in the series for many films to come.
Blade meets blade as the Sith and Jedi begin fighting with one another.
Wait, that never happens in Blade.
No, it's just Chris Christopherson complaining loudly like an old man. Hey, I don't get my lightsaber.
I'm tired of all these vamps.
You listen to me, Wesley Snipes. This is what it's going to be.
Nobody made me an offer to be a Jedi.
Now, since Jar Jar isn't here in the palace, we look to Anakin to do the dumb, goofy shit, and he does just that. Says he's not trying to activate the ship, but he does continue to activate it and pretend otherwise. He pushes some buttons, and eventually the fighter ship begins to move and fires at the droidica, blasting them out of the way and allowing Padme and her guards to slip past them.
I will say this, I'm more comfortable with Anakin doing the silly shit than I am Jar Jar, because he does have that natural ability, we know that, with the Force, so there's more of a chance he would succeed. Jar Jar just has like gills or something. What's he gonna do?
The other thing is R2 is the droid in the ship, and we know R2's very capable, so he's helping.
Let me ask you this. Is there like a droid power rankings?
There should be.
Because R2's really good
He's
at
up there. Well, how would you put the droid power ranking?
Okay,
Who's number one?
obviously C-3PO's number one, mainly because
sass,
lingual skills, sort of
language is known.
I would argue ability to get under the opponent's skin, perhaps.
Okay, yeah.
And then number two's R2, because he actually is really good at stuff.
Gonk Droid's number one.
Gonk Droid's up there, yeah.
He's pretty up there. He walks around and says, Gonk.
No matter what his task.
R2, yeah, he's up there, certainly.
And then,
BB-8's there.
BB-8's pretty cool.
The Jedi continue attacking the Sith, and Maul cartwheels around. At one point, stops to force throw a chunk of something at a door behind him, which causes it to open up and allow him to back up into the shield generator room with the Jedi relentlessly attacking him. Remember, they're Ataru fighters at this point. The goal is fuck the opponent up.
Yeah.
So they're going at him hard.
He's barraging him.
Because he's very athletic and skilled. For a moment, I do want to talk a little bit about using the Force in battle, because you'll hear people say like, well, why don't the Jedi or Sith just turn off their opponent's lightsaber using the Force in the middle of a battle? So the way I kind of describe all of this is, imagine you're running on a treadmill. Now, try juggling while running full speed sprinting on a treadmill.
Yeah.
Now, try singing the lyrics to a song you only heard once 20 years ago. It's not that it's easy, you just point and the Force happens. You have to concentrate and focus. It's no different than doing a physical task. It's just in a different way.
So I actually was thinking about this really similarly. If two great basketball players are playing against each other, like, and this is like a out of era thing, but it's the easiest way to say it. If Michael Jordan and LeBron James are playing one-on-one basketball, you're not going to say like, LeBron, steal the ball from Michael Jordan.
Yes.
It's like, I'm sure that's one of the things he's trying to do in this battle. But it's like if you're two masters of your craft, and everybody here has access to the Force big time, including the Sith, including Darth Maul. They may even be trying to do that, but the odds of pulling that off against someone so trained would probably be like minuscule.
Exactly. And each Jedi or Sith Force user is different. So it might be easier for one than it is for another. That's why Yoda lifts the X-Wing out of the swamp in Empire Strikes Back with no effort, whereas Luke struggles to even barely lift it. Yoda's more skilled at that. He can do more. So
Yoda's more relaxed. He's not all Luke and oh man, I can't wait to talk about New Hope. But Luke is just like, come on, when do I get to be the Star Jedi? And Yoda's like, let me just very relaxedly lift this giant ship up with my finger.
Well, little known fact, after Qui-Gon's killed at the end of this movie, Yoda inherits his stash. So when he's on Dagobah, that's all he has.
That explains why he's so likable and mischievous.
Yes. Compared to the kind of annoying guy early on at this.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Qui-Gon is being annoying. He's probably annoying Yoda and making him seem that way.
True. Maul and the Jedi continue fighting for the upper hand as they move slowly into the power generator room with thin walkways and humming energy fields all around them. Maul does a backflip to gain some distance between him and the Jedi, but the two continue pressing their advantage. Padme is almost to the throne room elsewhere in the castle, but several battle droids block her path. She tells Panaka they don't have time for this and searches for an alternate route.
Real quick, lightsaber fight question for you.
Okay.
In terms of the choreography of these things, this is the thing I think Star Wars has just gotten better and better at, actually, is making these more fun to look at.
Yes, and there are a lot to that. So you know how I mentioned these lightsaber forms? Those aren't just pulled out of thin air. Those are the martial artists, the choreographers, the stunt choreographers, fight choreographers who know martial arts and fighting techniques, creating this mythology around it.
And they can totally play off whatever the fighting style is.
Exactly.
Whereas the original trilogy, which is just a beautiful 3 movies, but nobody is a convincing fighter exactly.
Well, particularly that first one, A New Hope, when Obi-Wan and Vader battle, they're just kind of poking at each other. And what happened was the lightsabers...
was 2 old men were fighting one another.
Well, one old man and one strong man in a costume that he can't see anything.
I guess that's true, yeah.
Well, the lightsabers they were using kept breaking, so they couldn't hit it very hard.
That's really funny.
Because it was a much cheaper
Oh, yeah, they
production
didn't
at that
have the
time.
budget they would have even for the next movie.
And then Empire Strikes Back, you get to see Vader, who's just kind of fucking with Luke a little bit. And Luke's all right. There's some cool fight scenes there. And Return of the Jedi is another step past that. But also, if you look at this in eras, the prequel era is lightsaber users training with lightsabers. So, of course, the battles are going to be epic and huge here. The original trilogy, really Vader and like a handful of people know how to use lightsabers. That's it.
And this is more what I wanted to see, and just in general with Star Wars. I like this being expanded. George Lucas saying, we've got money to play with now. Let's get actual martial arts guys in here. Like you might for a cool B-grade action movie. You maybe not you have the actors, but in this you do have that as well. But you have the martial arts guys, actual stunt guys. So over the CGI, I like that he was willing to spend money on stuff like this too.
Yeah. And then, of course, looking ahead, the sequel trilogy, by that point in the universe, all the lightsaber duelists are gone.
Yeah.
So Kylo, for example, who's the big bad, he doesn't really use form and technique. He just bludgeons the shit out of everything. He's very rough around the edges. He's just powerful.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really cool twist. So even the fight scenes reflect that, where there's some cool shit going on.
Yeah, and
but it's more just
Rey being more of a like
a stick fighter.
Yes,
scrapper.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say like almost like a guerrilla fighter, like she almost has to be.
Yeah, like Grape Ape. She's really good at fighting like Grape Ape.
Or like Mighty Joe Young.
Wow, that's accurate. Wasn't that was a movie?
I think
in
it was
the 90s,
a movie,
right?
But not like Dunstan Checks In.
What happened in Mighty Joe Young?
I don't know. What is that? It's from the 90s.
Yeah, I think like Brad Pitt might be in that or something.
Oh my God, yeah,
it was a big deal when it came out, and even then I was like, I don't know about this.
I was like, oh, this sure looks like a bad King Kong, whatever this is.
Next up, in space, Anakin says the autopilot is taking him to the droid command ship, all while Rick Ollie and the crew try to disable the fleet. Rick Ollie says the deflector shields are too strong, and just as he does, his friend gets vaporized by Federation fire. He yells, "I don't care anymore," and continues attacking the command ship. R2 takes Anakin off autopilot, so the little boy decides to single-handedly wipe out the entire Federation fleet himself. You know how he does it?
Spins around a bunch.
Try spinning, that's a good trick.
Yeah, that'll do it every time.
By now, Panaka has figured their best bet is to go out a window and use their grappling hook to ascend to a higher level of the palace rather than fight the droids.
Space grappling hook, to be fair.
And it comes standard in all of their guns.
I guess so.
I mean, if you're sitting around thinking, what does my gun need to be more all-purpose? You think grappling hook.
And I feel like that'd be a heavy addition.
You would think, but space.
To do the hook that you need
Brian.
Yeah.
The Force.
Oh, I forgot about that. I stand corrected.
So Panaka violently shoots out the glass, and the group steps out, launching themselves in the sky with their grappling hook guns. On the higher floor, they enter the empty hallway, and it sure seems like they've got a clear path to nuke Gunray, so they soldier on. Back in the shield generator room, the Jedi continue battling Darth Maul, and Maul gets a nice back kick in on Obi-Wan, which causes him to tumble down several floors, the first of many times that Obi-Wan gets knocked off of things in the prequels. I appreciate that he just gets banged up from time to time.
I will say he's very good at keeping his balance and not dying.
Qui-Gon gets a good backhand in here, and that knocks Maul down onto a lower level as well. The Jedi dies after him, attempting to finish the Sith off, but Maul deflects his stab, and the two continue battling far from Obi-Wan, with the Padawan having now gotten back to his feet. He runs back to his master and the Sith, but they continue fighting down a corridor where the three are quickly separated from one another by high-powered laser security gates.
And this is the turnstile I was referring to earlier.
Correct, yes, although these are made of lasers. Yeah. And this is in
Which
universe,
is different than you would see at like a department store.
Sometimes Macy's has these now.
Yeah, and Dillard's probably. Is that around?
I don't know if Dillard's still exists.
Could be.
You can
Montgomery
buy
Ward's.
Moderately priced pair of pants there. No, in universe,
if
these
you get
are
past the laser turnstile, that is.
These are security measures. So these actually, what happens is they can block anything. You can't cut through them. They're super heated or powerful or whatever. However, they get too hot, so they have a cooldown, and it takes 10 seconds.
Pity hot.
The idea here is to slow people down, not completely stop them from getting in.
Okay.
A little weird, but yeah, that's fine. Whatever. Maul and Qui-Gon have just one gate between them, but Obi-Wan is still several back. As the warriors wait for the gates to open, we see each of them do different things representative of their character. Maul is fury and rage, so he paces back and forth and kind of snarls at Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon's the consummate Jedi. He chooses to kneel to regain his energy and meditate into the Force, calm himself. And Obi-Wan, who's not quite as calm and trusting in the Force yet as Qui-Gon is, just kind of stands there anxiously awaiting. He's not angry like Maul, but he's also not as calm as he should be.
But we should get on to that. Let's get back to some more important characters.
Well, things are not going great for the Gungans, Brian. And we see an errant blaster shot hit the shield generator protecting the army. This causes that massive shield to dissipate, so Roose Tarples gives the signal to retreat. Jar Jar does some bumbling bullshit here, where in actuality he accidentally winds up destroying half of the droid army.
It's just like what Anakin does, only clumsier.
Mm-hmm.
Like he gets a gun stuck to his foot, I think, at one point or another.
And shoots out like 5 droids with it.
I'd like to read to the audience a couple of Jar Jar's exclamations during this scene.
Please do.
This is nutsin'. That's one of them. Another one. Uh-oh, big boomers. These are real.
These are actual lines of dialogue from this movie. And of course, by the way, Anakin doing dumb bullshit, he's blowing things up with a spaceship.
Yeah.
Jar Jar doing it is doing with his giant, colossal blue balls.
Yeah, those orbs. Those fucking orbs. Which, by the way, when Jar Jar's other friend, his Gungan friend, throws him one of those, it's referred to as a booma.
Mm-hmm. Jar Jar catches it and uses it.
It trips over
successfully. No, he bobbles it, trips over it, farts a couple of times, and then it destroys the tank.
I don't. This is stupid.
Well put, my friend. Roose actually tries to save Jar Jar at one point. He's dangling off of a tank, but the two wind up being stopped by the droids as the robot army surrounds them. Unfortunately, also for the Queen, they aren't faring any better. A swarm of droidicas surround the small tactical force, and she goes ahead and tells them to put down their weapons. They've won this round. Anakin, meanwhile, crashes his ship into the main hangar of the droid command ship, and it appears his entire vehicle is overheated. R2 lets out a shriek, and Anakin says, "This is not good." With the Sith and Jedi, the laser walls finally switch off in the Theed power generator room, and as they do, Qui-Gon and Darth Maul reactivate their lightsaber blades and continue fighting. Obi-Wan rushes through towards his Jedi Master, but just before he clears the hall, the final barrier reactivates, and he is once again separated from the dueling Jedi and Sith. All he can do is stand here and wait for the door to deactivate again.
Sometimes when you hit traffic wrong, it's just like red light after red light.
So frustrating. Ugh. There's 3 stoplights from here to there, and I hit every fucking one of them.
Every single one of them, and your master's in a sword fight for his life. You gotta get there. Gotta get to work.
It's not looking too good for any of our heroes right now, but before we find out what the thrilling conclusion to the Phantom Menace is, we need to take one last break. I'm told by Sergio, our sound guy, that we have one last political advertisement for you, so let's take a listen and see what Senator Palpatine's camp has to say. Paid for by the Palpatine for Chancellor Committee for Good Upstanding Citizens.
Daddy, Daddy, come look at the large frog man.
Ha ha ha! Frogman, you say?
He's so fun and goofy, Daddy.
What do you mean by frogman?
Excuse me.
Oh no. Oh no!
Daddy, he's scaring me.
Run away, son! Run! I'll distract you so you can escape!
Daddy, no! Daddy, help me!
Tell your mother I love her!
This is very, very bad.
If Chancellor Valorum gets his way, this is what you have to look forward to. A world where Gungans can walk freely among our children.
Gungans are Nobulians too.
Excuse me.
You alone have the power to stop this by electing Senator Sheev Palpatine to the office of Supreme Chancellor. While Valorum spends his time telling every Gungan citizen just how pretty they are, Palpatine is hard at work building a future for you and for me.
I love democracy. I love the Republic.
Can you say the same thing about Chancellor Valorum, who voted on 9 separate occasions for legislation furthering the Gungan agenda?
Gungans are Nobulians too.
The radical left will tell you Gungans are just like us, but what they don't tell you is that Gungans eat human babies for Tuesday brunch.
Ah, moi.
That's why Chancellor Palpatine is going to build a wall, the greatest wall ever, and Ota Gunga is going to pay for it.
Oh, no!
As a Nebulian politician who grew up rich and has never not been rich, Senator Palpatine knows what's best for everyone.
I am the Senate.
So when you're called upon to place your ballot, are you siding with the Gungan illegals?
I would.
Or are you siding with Senator Palpatine? I mentioned one of the weaknesses of Form 4 Ataru lightsaber fighting is that it requires a lot of open space to be effective. This is not a wide open space. This is a pretty confined area.
This is fighting on top of Rainbow Road or something.
Lots of precarious holes with bottomless pits to worry about.
As a fellow person kind of afraid of heights, I would be sweating. I wouldn't be able to hold a lightsaber up here with no guardrail.
Not a fan. Why don't they have guardrails here? Surely Space OSHA.
Well, what is this place for?
Shield generator.
Power. People need to service this thing. You should put a guardrail.
It's one old man who's like, I fell off the railing again.
The last man died.
And of course, Ataru is also very taxing on the user, and Qui-Gon's 50 years old, like I said.
Excuses.
Not a surprise he once was. Well, he's clearly fatigued at this point as he duels with Maul here. Maul and Qui-Gon continue dueling as Obi-Wan looks on, and Qui-Gon goes to block a swipe from Maul using an overhand swing, but using an unconventional weapon like the dual-blade saber gives Maul a little bit of an advantage because Jedi have not trained to fight against that.
More points of attack.
And Maul uses the hilt of the saber to smack Qui-Gon in the chin, which gives him just enough of an opening to impale the Jedi Master through the chest.
Runs him through. Oh.
Obi-Wan screams, no! But realizes he must center himself if he hopes to defeat the Sith warrior. He takes a deep breath as he waits for the laser wall to switch off.
Man, things are not going well for the heroes.
Not at all. A Jedi Master's dead. The Gungans are completely defeated. Padme's been captured by Newt Gunray. Everything's looking bleak. Padme's escorted to the throne room where Newt tells her, it's over. She needs to sign the treaty. She needs to end the pointless debate in the Senate. But just outside the door, Sabe, Padme's handmaiden, is still dressed as the actual queen. Padme's just wearing a regular outfit.
Yeah, street clothes. What she just kind of wears to watch Netflix.
So Newt assumes, oh, that's the queen out there. This is a decoy. So he says, go get them. Go get the queen. With only a few droids staying behind, Padme presses a button on her recliner, which reveals a secret compartment full of guns. And I'm pretty sure that comes standard on new lazy boy chairs. There's always a gun compartment
full
of
kind
guns.
Of, they have a refrigerator on one side and then a gun rack on the other side.
Welcome to Missouri. Panaka, Padme, and the rest of the guards destroy the droids and draw on Newt with Padme telling him, now we'll discuss a new treaty.
But she knows she's got these frogs surrounded.
She's also like, you know what? Do you just think all of us white people look alike? All of us pretty white people?
Yeah.
Come on, Newt. He's like, oh no, I am not racist like that. Sure, I have this voice.
Now, do you worry that we look the same as frog people? Do you think that me and my lover, whose name Brian knows, it's Rune, do you think that we look the same?
Darth Maul continues to give a little sheepish grin at Obi-Wan as they wait for the door to open.
Love it. This is beyond already murdering his master. Well, we don't know that yet, I guess, technically. But we know that. beyond that, he's fucking laughing about it, but not even in a Sidious way. He's not doing a full cackle. It's just a little knowing smile. And
I fucked that guy up. I fucked your boyfriend up.
Yeah, what do you think you're going to do about it, rat tail?
When the door finally opens, the two ignite their lightsabers, and the young Obi-Wan begins to relentlessly strike at the Zabrak Sith. Maul goes for a similar move, which he used to defeat Qui-Gon, but Kenobi shows his understanding of the fight. He instead cuts the saber in half. Now Maul can't use that trick.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps the first instance of Obi-Wan showing how good of a defensive fighter he can be.
Yeah. The two continue battling, and at one point, the Sith kicks Obi-Wan in the face, which causes him to do a complete mid-air somersault, and he lands right back on his feet. Which is pretty cool.
That's how you sell a sweet chin music right there.
Kenobi continues to assault Maul, but gets too aggressive, and this gives Maul an opening to use the Force to push Kenobi backwards into a large Super Mario-like bottomless pit. Obi-Wan manages to grab a hold of some random thing sticking out of the wall. This prevents him from plummeting down below.
That's what they installed in lieu of a guardrail.
They put one little thing that you better reach it.
Knob.
Maul kicks his lightsaber down into the pit, and it looks like this is it for Kenobi. Anakin, back in the Nebulian starfighter, has restored power to his ship, so he begins to fire at several approaching battle droids, and he just randomly pushes a big button, which causes torpedoes to fire forward and hit a power generator. This is deep within the command ship. This causes things to indiscriminately start exploding, and several Nemoidians with speakers for mouths talk about losing power, which another frogman says, "That's impossible! They can't get through our shields!" They all talk like that. Every last
one of them.
Rick Ollie and the other Nebulian starfighters are confused as to what the fuck is happening because they didn't actually do anything.
And I think that's fair.
That is fair. And they see their savior, a little boy, come flying out of the command ship. It explodes behind all of them. Anakin decides this is a good time to get a quip in, so he blurts out,
"Now this is Podracing."
No, it isn't.
No. This is fighting in a war.
Sebulba's not here.
And I do understand there are deaths that go on during the pod race because of the shooting gallery around the back third of the lap. And also because Sebulba's there and he is probably an actual murderer.
I think once he left pod racing, there probably were less deaths.
I would imagine the sport cleaned up considerably, yes.
He was responsible for 95% of them.
Ty Cobb or something.
With the destruction of the droid command ship, the mini battle droids stationed on the planet begin to deactivate. Roose Tarples, Jar Jar, and the rest of the Gungans realize the command ship has been destroyed, so they cheer and begin to knock over the useless robots.
And I kept waiting for the big moment here where maybe Valorum shows up and he and Tarples cross paths for the first time.
Well, see, it was a deleted scene. They had to cut it for time.
I think this may have not even been a thing we recorded. I'm not sure.
I don't remember.
Van and I had a running joke about like the idea that a deep cut, like a real deep Star Wars fan, like it'd be really big fan service for Valorum and Tarples to cross paths.
They do a series of handshakes and high fives, and people are like, shit, who knew this could happen?
Oh, man, or even maybe before they even get to the high fives, like kind of a across the room knowing nod.
Just a slight recognition. Yeah. Hanging from the random wall nub, Obi-Wan senses his master's lightsaber on the ground near his body. Maul at this point is rubbing it in, having beaten both master and apprentice. So he smiles a bunch and scrapes his lightsaber on the ground, causing sparks.
Spikes it like a football and then does like the icky shuffle. It's crazy.
That's precisely what happened. What is the icky shuffle, pray tell?
In the 80s, I think a football player did it when he scored touchdowns, or maybe a whole team did or something.
All at once?
It's something I remember from when I was a kid. It was like a thing people... And I think they said it on like Saturday Night Live as a joke. You know, it was one of those kinds of references that was very ubiquitous in the early 90s.
Everyone needs to go check out their copy of the Phantom Menace so they can see exactly what the icky shuffle looks like. Kenobi centers himself, calms his demeanor, and simultaneously force flings himself upwards while drawing the lightsaber into his hand. He does another mid-air somersault over the Sith warrior, igniting his blade and slicing him in half.
Pretty fucking cool.
We see Maul's eyes go wide as he falls backwards into the bottomless pit, top and bottom half tumbling, separated from one another, as the Darth is no more. Except, in-universe, he actually survives.
Yeah.
So the Clone Wars show brought him back and essentially did an arc where a fellow Zabrak Knight brother, who is essentially Darth Maul's brother, and his name is Savage Opress.
Cool.
And he's like a bigger, more
Savage
brutish version.
Oppress.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
He gets some sort of a clue that maybe Maul's still alive, and he goes to this junk planet called Lotho Minor, ends up finding Maul, who has been, for the last 10 years or however long this has been, basically just gone nuts. He's gone insane. He's built robot
Which
spider
is crazy
legs
because
for himself.
in this movie, he seems so put together and rational.
So he's just crazy. His horns are long because did you know Zabraks have to like file them down?
That is pretty cool. That explains why Eve Globin had these shorter, rounded off horns.
As opposed to the spiky
Can you
pointy
give me a
ones.
name on that guy?
Eth Koth.
I was kind of close.
You weren't too far off. I'm kind of impressed.
I even have my pictures here somewhere. I should have pulled them out.
So eventually, Savage rescues Maul, takes him to the Night Sisters, who's their mom, essentially. They do some magic. He gets better legs that aren't like spider legs, and basically is just back in full force. He is singularly minded, though. He wants to fuck Kenobi up because Kenobi fucked him up.
So, in what context do you believe at the time of this recording we will see Darth Maul again?
We'll see.
Is he showing up in this here Kenobi series?
That was the original plan, but I guess they brought in additional writers to take that out. There was a whole thing with Ray Park getting in trouble for something. Let me preface this by saying, I don't know what it was, but I remember reading it and thinking...
I watched him murder a guy in this movie.
Well, I remember reading about this and thinking this was not even remotely a big deal. It was even, I think it was just a sex thing. Like somebody accidentally posted, or he accidentally posted a video of him having sex to his
Somebody
Instagram.
accidentally had sex with Ray Park.
Yes. But it wasn't intentional.
It's
it wasn't
his personal video he accidentally uploaded.
That's what I think it was.
If that's what it is, that's not a big deal.
Yeah, who cares? So apparently, though, they've thought he might be done with Star Wars because of that. Because they originally planned to bring him back. He had a cameo as Maul in the Solo movie.
Yeah.
I think we see more Darth Maul, surely.
I got very excited about that in the Solo movie.
And I thought it would have been... Okay, so in Rebels, the TV show, we actually find the culmination of this story. And what it is Ezra, the annoying kid I can't stand, basically does some stupid shit and seeks out Obi-Wan, finds him on Tatooine, and Obi-Wan's like, you need to go away. You don't need to be here. I'm important. And Maul, turns out, did this all to find Obi-Wan. It was all his plan. They have another duel. And despite the fact that Rebels sucked, this duel was awesome. And they even play homage to this because when Kenobi fought Maul at this time, Kenobi was using Ataru form. He had to switch to Soresu.
Yeah.
So what Kenobi does is when they ready to fight and he gets in his stance, he gets in the Ataru stance first. And so Maul makes an adjustment. So then Kenobi realizes what's going down. So he switches to Soresu.
You know, I believe Rod Carew had several different batting stances.
Regular Obi-Wan Kenobi there, Rod Carew. So in fact, Maul goes for the same move to hit Obi-Wan in the face, the chin. But Obi-Wan predicted this. And instead of cutting him in half horizontally, cuts him in half vertically.
Oh,
he's like, this will do the job.
That's badass.
So Maul dies there. Yeah, it's really, really cool.
Oh, man.
But anyway, yeah, he's not dead here. But of course, this didn't occur until later. This was just like people saying, oh, the character's cool, let's bring him back. Whereas at this point, he's dead.
Yeah.
In the
and
canon.
like, when I saw this as a kid, there was that part, like, they could bring him back, much in the way it was like, I bet Muldoon's still alive in Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't actually think it was plausible, and I still don't. I mean, Darth Maul fell like 4,000 stories down this silo of power.
And was cut in half.
Yeah.
Now, what it is in that case, why he survived or how he survived was hatred. The dark side of the Force can keep, like Anakin should have been dead after he had his limbs cut off and burned to a crisp. But the hatred kept him alive. The other thing I want to touch on is Maul losing to Kenobi here.
Yes.
Because Kenobi clearly was done. The problem is rather than just finish him off, Maul decided to showboat a little.
Yeah.
And he was scraping the lightsaber on the floor and just being kind of showboaty. That is what his undoing is, and that's what's explained as to how Kenobi beat him. However, I don't think the movie does a good job showing that.
It doesn't really.
If you read the book, the novelization of the movie, it does a far better job of it. So as a kid, I remember thinking, like, why doesn't he just do something while Obi-Wan jumps over him?
Like, the showboatiness of Darth Maul is something that I didn't notice as a kid, really, exactly. And then, like, it's only because I've seen this movie several times that eventually it becomes kind of endearing.
Obi-Wan rushes to his dying master, who hasn't quite left the mortal plane.
I bet he's got something really important to say.
Well, he pulls a major dick move here, Brian. He tells Obi-Wan to promise him to train the boy. You know that thing I wanted to do? I want you to do it now.
With my last dying wish, I'd like to saddle you with something for the rest of your life.
Qui-Gon says he believes the boy's the chosen one and will bring balance to the Force. And his last words are, train him. And then he dies.
Not a good idea.
So Obi-Wan, of course, this is his master. He loves his master. Okay, I guess I'll do this.
And you can't blame Obi-Wan here. It's essentially like his older brother dying.
With the war over on the streets of Theed, the Queen has captured both Newt Gunray and Rune Hako And alongside
the true villains of the universe, the whole thing is over.
Alongside Obi-Wan and Anakin, she tells the Viceroy she's going to make him go explain what he did to the Senate. So, more Senate proceedings. Unfortunately, we don't get to see them. That's really the last we see of Newton Rune. Senator Palpatine greets Kenobi and Anakin and tells Obi-Wan they are indebted. We're indebted to your bravery. He then turns to Anakin and says, and you, little boy who did all this work, we'll watch your career with great interest. And if you'd like, I can be your father figure and groom you from a very young age to be my new evil apprentice, although you find out in the end what I was really doing was grooming a body for me to take over and be the greatest Sith of all, but then it doesn't quite pan out with you, so I go after your just as whiny son, only for that not to work, so I get thrown down a bottomless pit, but somehow come back, and now I've got a granddaughter, so I try to steal her body, but she resists, and instead I lightning bolt myself to death. How's that sound?
This is pod racing.
Sure.
Yeah, that's like his default response to everything. Yippee!
Palpatine now approaches the Queen, who tells him, congratulations on your promotion, Chancellor. Yes! Valorum's fucking out. It's Palpatine time,
fucking
baby.
Bullshit. Recount.
Grandmaster Yoda is now addressing Obi-Wan in a spare Naboo conference room, and he tells the young Padawan that now the Jedi Council has bestowed upon him the title of Jedi Knight. Think about it. This is the first time in 1,000 years a Jedi has killed a Sith. This is a big fucking deal.
Yeah, and I mean, if there was any doubt that Obi-Wan was ready, I mean, he kind of proved he is.
But Yoda makes sure to tell him he does not agree with Obi-Wan taking on the boy as his Padawan.
even after Qui-Gon's death, Yoda's like, I still think this is foolish.
Obi-Wan tells the little goblin that he gave Qui-Gon his word, I will train Anakin. Yoda snorts and chortles and lets out a big sigh, saying, fine, the council will allow you to train him. But Yoda senses much darkness in the boy's training, so be careful. That night, the cast is at Qui-Gon's funeral, where they decide to just cook him for a little bit. Mm-hmm. Anakin asks Kenobi what's going to happen now, and Obi-Wan tells him over his friend's burning corpse that I will train you. Mace Windu is now fully on board with the return of the Sith. He says there's no doubt the mysterious warrior was a Sith. Yoda says, two there are, a master and an apprentice. Mace asks, but which one was destroyed, the master or the apprentice?
Oh, man, and that is the question. I like this Yoda Mace Windu scene. It feels like the adults are just having a conversation free of all the Anakin drama and all of that stuff. And I'll correct myself from earlier. I was thinking that Qui-Gon for sure knew that Sith traveled in pairs, but he may not have even known that.
Yeah, not many do, so I'm not sure, because they don't really study the Sith. They haven't been a big deal for a while.
Yeah, Qui-Gon's like 40. He doesn't know.
Not anymore. Now he's 0.
0, yeah. Now he's a Force ghost, maybe.
After they talk that little bit about master or apprentice, the camera pans to young Anakin, and then over to now Chancellor Palpatine. Probably for no reason, though.
I can't imagine how those two characters would be related in the future.
Well, with that pesky funeral out of the way, we can now get to the fun stuff.
Oh, man. Hey, what place did you get in the flower cup?
Second.
I got third. I'm glad we both get to make it onto the podium, though.
And we can toss our wine bottles, or... Did you know in the Japanese version of Super Mario Kart, Princess Peach drinks the wine and gets blitzed?
That's pretty cool.
But then they censored it for the US version. I think she just tosses the bottle.
Oh, yeah. Neat. But is there a big fish?
There's always a big fish.
Okay.
Like that movie, Big Fish, starring Blooper.
That's what that was about?
Yes. Did you miss it?
I need to see this movie.
There's a parade through the streets of Naboo. Boss Nass leads a procession of Gungans as they approach the palace. Up on the steps sits our heroes Obi-Wan, Anakin, Chancellor Palpatine, Padme, Captain Panaka, R2-D2, and of course, C.O. Bibble.
Yeah, he's always there. And several probably Delfino Island natives based on the music.
There's giant fruit just lying around and a Yoshi around the corner. We get a shot of young Anakin in Padawan's robes with a cool braid in his no longer bowl-cut hair. So improvement in one way, detrimental in the other. Boss Nass, Roose Tarples, and Jar Jar approach the Queen, and the group does the ancient ceremony of hoisting the glowing orb. We get shots of all the main characters, the music gets more intense, and boom, credits. Movie over.
Yeah, I'm really glad that am I correct that Boss Nass was awarded this glowing orb?
I think it was more to signify the achievement of the people getting together and teaming
peace,
up. Yes.
Between them and stuff like that. But Boss Nass,
Peace orb.
Boss Nass is the guy who's going to want to actually keep it in his trophy case.
Well, and he's the tall one, and the strong one by all accounts, so he gets to hoist it up.
Definitely the smartest one.
He does not he might refer to that orb as Bombad. We're not sure.
We don't know what all Bombad can possibly mean. It might be like Smurf, where it just means everything. So this is the end of the first Star Wars movie at this point in over 15 years that it had hit theaters.
And we kind of talked about how our reactions to it were and everything, but we can kind of really cover just the feeling of the movie as it finished here. You know, as we kids, we'll talk about this again, you weren't necessarily disappointed, but how did you feel about that?
As a kid, I felt a little underwhelmed, but only because I think I was expecting to be blown away. But I mean, I still liked it fine. I obviously thought that the move to kill Qui-Gon was an affecting story point that was made in the movie. Like, that upset me greatly, of course, saying it when I was a kid. I will say it felt, even as a kid, kind of anticlimactic. It felt like the original trilogy, you kind of knew that there was more story to be told, or it felt like it.
But this felt final.
At this point, you don't know where this is headed, which is not necessarily bad, but the only reason to get into the theater for the next Star Wars is just that it's a Star Wars movie, because everything's pretty much wrapped up in a neat bow here, other than the fact, I guess, you do know that Palpatine's evil.
Yes. And, well, that's a question a lot of people have is, at the time, did people really understand Palpatine was Sidious? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they have the same chin. We really only see Sidious from the nose down, but it's clearly the same speaking voice.
You're supposed to know.
Yeah, and you are supposed to know. I think when I left the theater after I'd seen this, I was pretty pissed that both Maul and Qui-Gon died.
Yeah.
However, I do remember thinking that, holy shit, the lightsaber fights were so cool. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I liked a lot of the action, which I was more interested in that when I was a kid.
Of course.
I didn't really have, like I said, the old, that movie sucked because of Jar Jar in my mind. I only got that once people started telling me to feel that way.
I was a little disappointed as a kid and now that Yoda doesn't get more fun stuff in this movie.
As for the kind of wrapping up and being ended, and like you said, there's no real reason to go see the next movie. That was kind of by design because obviously there's a 10-year gap between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. Because the story of this was finding Anakin and him, potentially becoming the chosen one. So the next story picks up with his story. He's trained, he's now a Jedi Knight, and we have to have the overarching story, which is how does he become Darth Vader?
Yeah, so much goes on in this next movie.
Lots of trade disputes. So that's pretty much going to do it for Star Wars, The Phantom Menace. We've covered the full movie with these two episodes. We hope everyone enjoyed them. Because this is a miniseries, we'll be coming back in a couple of weeks. It may be a week gap, it may be 2 weeks. We'll see how I'm feeling, but I have to get away from some of the stuff for a little bit.
Between doing this and then also simultaneously covering the Obi-Wan show for Bootu Boys.
It was a lot.
We got to step away and talk about Party of 5.
So check that out. Bootu Boys, get that wherever you listen to your podcast. Leave us a like, a review, a rate. We would appreciate it. That will get more eyes and ears on our show. And of course, tell your friends about it. Check out my YouTube channel, which is Bootu Inc., B-O-O-T-U. I have some Star Wars stuff on there. I do game stuff.
There's
I do
some
all kinds of
bomb
crap.
bad stuff on there.
And there'll be more stuff.
I mean it the good
forward.
way this time.
This time, but But did you?
No, but the internet has a lot of bomb bad stuff on it.
And of course, you can find us on Twitter. I'm at Manly Van Lee.
At Loud Guitar Brian.
Follow us for more updates and stuff. Stay tuned for new episodes of the show. This is going to be a lot of fun. And honestly, I watched Attack of the Clones about a week ago, just for grins.
I watched it maybe 3 months ago.
Ooh, it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about.
Yeah, I'm going to obviously be watching it again. So, hoo boy.
So stay tuned for the feed for when the new episodes drop. But for now, this meeting of the Galactic Senate has adjourned. First up, we have Yaddle, who's a female member of Yodi. All these stupid fucking words.
None of these are going to roll off the tongue. I think that's one of the Lucas precursors to is they have to be awkward to say.